Hold on. Everybody, I'm just doing some invites. Don't know who was up there, but I guess we'll find out in a second here. Just a second. I'm finishing up a few invites. Oh, wow. We got a bunch of people up here. Damn.
Hello, Chip.
Hello,
Hey,
Chip.
give me a second, everybody. I'm going to do a little intro and then we'll get started with the conversation. Thanks for your patience. Just going to keep everybody muted for a second. We just started about maybe a minute ago. Usually let some filters. Hope everybody's doing good. It's a Tuesday. It's hot here today. And I finally got off my ass and made a couple videos. It's been a while, so hopefully you can check those out. Provocative as usual. Probably get flagged and taken down. That's okay. You're not getting too close to the sun. You're not flying properly. And if you don't mind, everybody who's coming in, hello, how you doing? If you don't mind, please invite in some other people so we can get a good crowd. Hopefully we'll get some different views and different points of view so we can talk about some stuff. I'm with the dog. Yeah, I must be a glutton for punishment because I think I was on 3 different pro-Zionist lives today. And 2 of them were a total disaster. One was okay for about 5 or 7 minutes, and then it went into disaster mode. I don't know what it is about those folks, but they can't seem to behave in a way that's like dignified in any way, shape, or form. And maybe it's just a waste of time. Maybe they're the kind of people that, they can't do anything as far as trying to justify unjustifiable behavior. So they have to just kind of beat up on the person. And for some reason, they find me particularly as a target to beat up on. But I think that's probably a product of effectiveness. I should be honored by that rather than upset by it. All right, there's someone else in the queue. Oh, good. Freedom Philistines here. That'll be cool too. All right, so I'm going to do a little bit of an intro today, everybody on the panel. I won't be long out of respect for you not having to wait too long to speak. If you don't mind staying muted so we don't get a lot of background noise, and I'll try to do the same when cars come whizzing by. But yeah, plenty to talk about. I'm not as up on the news. I did not watch Democracy Now! This morning, which is my normal morning news program. So if there's anything floating around you want to share, please do. Okay, so I just put out a couple of videos. I want to talk a little bit about that stuff because it's fresh on my mind. So one of the things I keep hearing when I go on these pro-Zionist lives is, and this happened today specifically, with a guy who sounds like he's Australian named Nick. I don't know who he is, but he's like a bearded guy. I don't know. You can just tell from his accent he's Australian. And when I was up on his panel and the subject of 10/7 came up, and listen, I'm empathetic. I mean, the things that happened to everyday Israelis that had nothing to do with their government was horrible. Many times civilians get harmed. I've talked about this. I oppose it 100%. Whether it was somebody being kicked in the groin, unalived, essayed, or anything worse. I totally condemn that, and anyone who does those things to civilians is guilty of a war crime and should be punished as such on both sides. Anytime there's direct intent to harm a civilian for no reason whatsoever, other than you can because you have the upper hand, I'm against that. That's been going on for 75 plus years with Palestinians and Israelis, starting with those gangs that preceded the state of Israel, those terrorist gangs like the Irgun and all those other groups, you know the names. I don't have to tell you them. So with that in mind, yes, it was sudden what happened on 10/7. I understand when things happen suddenly, it has more of an impact. It's like a big gut punch. But the slow but steady unaliving, injuring, land theft, I could go on for hours about all that stuff. We all know the story. If you add up all those things that have happened for a long period of time, it's way more than any number of civilians that any one group could try to attack and hurt in one day. And frankly, just in the first week of the Israeli response, they killed, I think it's like 2 or 3 times the number of civilians that died in that one bad day for their country. Well, Stefan, what I mean is from their perspective. Come on, Ruby, come on, baby. Come on. From their perspective, it was sudden, right? They hadn't experienced a lot of that for a long time. And so for them, it was a big surprise and a gut punch. And I understand that. And I feel badly for their hostages. I hope their hostages are able to come back. I hope they do a swap that's egalitarian, so that all the people that are being held in Israeli jails that really have no reason being there other than the fact that Israel can take them there, I hope they get released. And if anybody's charged with some bullshit crime like throwing a rock or whatever that stuff is, if you have a 12-year-old kid who throws a rock at an armored vehicle, that's not a terrorist. That's someone who's incredibly frustrated with his life circumstances and feels like they have no other choice but to pick up a damn rock, right? So now this is getting into sensitive territory, but it is what it is. Listen, it's worthy of being talked about. So every time I go into one of these lives, this live guy today, this guy named Nick, he was requiring me out of respect to the victims, he said, that I acknowledge and agree with all of the allegations of the more egregious things that happened on 10/7, including a pregnant mother having her midsection opened up and having, both the mother and what was taken out unalived. Um, you know, that's one there's definitely no evidence for, as far as I've found. The reason why I doubt that, and it's not because I want to, it could have happened, I guess, it's possible, but it seems highly unlikely. And here's why. There was an interview conducted with the head of whatever that group is called that goes in and does all the cleanup. It's like the special group they have for dealing with these situations. And the head of this group was in an interview with a journalist, and the journalist said, "Wow, that sounds horrible. Do you have any evidence of that so I can, corroborate it for my listeners?" He wasn't going to show it to us, but just look at it. So the guy goes and grabs his phone. He says, "Yes, I have the evidence right here on my phone." I was like, "Cool." So the guy brings his phone back, and they're scrolling through his pictures, and he's showing pictures. And according to the interviewer, he's like, "Well, where's the woman? Where's the child? This is just a spot on the floor where there's some residual, stuff that comes out of our arteries." And he said, "Well, that's where it was. We didn't have time to document it," or some shit like that. Now, I got to tell you something. As a someone who knows a little bit about the military, if you see an atrocity, before you touch anything like a crime scene, you document it. There's no way on earth, if some of these more egregious things happen, for example, if somebody's sitting there unalive and something like that were to have occurred, they would have taken pictures of it. And if a group is trying to terrorize another group of people, they take pictures of it and they try to put it out on the media to show, like ISIS did. Now, none of that happened with H Group. They weren't bragging about some of these more egregious things, and it may be because many of them did not happen. I don't know. I don't think any of us can know. I've made that point over and over, and yet people say I outright deny those more egregious. I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever know for sure. But I do know one thing. In my experience in dealing with Israeli commentary, Israeli propaganda, they lie a lot. And I don't mean a little bit. They lie as a course of doing business. So there was a documentary that came out. I don't know if you've seen it. And it was talking about the allegations of SA. Sheryl Sandberg, the former Facebook executive, $2.1 billion of net worth, decides she's going to go to Israel and do a documentary about the things that happened that day around those allegations. And again, while it's very difficult to say that something didn't occur, right? I don't think that's fair. But it's also fair to look at the credibility of what's presented in the documentary and just kind of give your impression. I literally watched it with an objective eye, saying to myself, okay, no preconceived notions, just take it in and for what it's worth. So if you haven't watched it, I suggest you do. I'll give you my impression. In the entire documentary, out of all the people that were describing things that day, there was one woman who was interviewed sitting on a chair. She had dark hair. She seemed very nice. She sounded like she was telling the truth. And what she said, what happened to her is that one of the militants asked her to take a shower or something like this. So she took a shower. And as she was getting out of the shower, and I don't know if this part's true, they said he put one of those things that goes bang, bang to her head and then required her to do an act on him, is what she said. I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm imagining like a Monica Lewinsky type of thing. That's the only part of the film to me that seemed to have any genuine validity to it in terms of somebody being honest. Again, you can watch it yourself. You can say if you agree or differ. I can't say for sure that none of else what was said, but there was a guy in the film that said he went directly to like one of the kibbutzim where he saw all of these examples, like women laying on the ground with their undergarments gone and their leg, there's no documentation of it. And he looked like that same guy from that same group who was lying about the mother and the baby thing. Same exact man. So I don't know for sure. I'm not a forensic, like I'm not a cop. I can't tell when people are lying. But I can tell you this: it made me scratch my head. Put it that way. And so I'm curious to see if anybody else who has seen it, to share their reaction, or if you want to see it, then come back. It's about, I don't know, about 45, 50 minutes, I think. And it was tough for me to watch it, not because of the content, but because I thought of how conjured up it seemed to be. And I just wanted to turn it off because I'm like, damn, this is more of the same bullshit. And then that one segment went through with that one woman, and maybe she was telling the truth. I don't know. She seemed very convincing to me. But that was it. Now, I didn't want to go into that film that way. In fact, I've almost begged people to send evidence about what happened that day. And everyone claims they have all this evidence. Oh, we got the forensics. Oh, we got the pictures. Oh, okay. Never seen one shred of evidence. Even a third-party testimony from, let's say, a human rights worker that goes to Israel and meets with a family and goes through the evidence of the traumatic experience and interviews somebody. Hey, that I can buy into, but not an Israeli or a pro-Israeli source, because they have every reason to try to make it look like the H group are a bunch of barbarians. And I'm not saying some of the things they did weren't barbaric. And maybe some of the members are barbaric. I don't know. I don't know who the hell they are, what's in their heart. I don't even know what they were told to do that day. And that's another big thing too. But the sense I get is the accusation that there was widespread use of SA as a tool of terrorizing the Israel. That I don't see evidence for. The one off here, one off there, as horrible as it may have been for the people who experienced it, or maybe hostages who did, I don't know for sure. It doesn't diminish their suffering or their story. But the accusation that it's widespread, I believe, is hard to give credibility to. Let's put it that way. Now, again, I could be wrong, and I don't want to be. I'm not 100% certain about any of this, so I have to use that caveat because that's not fair to say anything with certainty. But with the pattern of Israeli lying over the years, and with the way they've used what I call atrocity propaganda, it does seem sort of suspect that all of a sudden all of these really horrible things were drummed up, babies and women. When who knows? That just seems to be par for the course, and in line with how Israel chooses to put out its information. So maybe. By the way, if anybody here in the audience knows something that I don't know, if you've seen something I don't know, please tell me, because I do not want to be the person that's talking out of my ass. I get accused all the time of spreading misinformation. You're a liar. I will tell you this. I'll look you in the eye. I would never, ever knowingly say something that's false based on the evidence. If the evidence does come in and it's corroboratable, I'll be the first to tell you, because I have to be honest, even if it doesn't make the H group or the Palestinian or whatever you want to think. Because I don't think from that point of view. I think from a point of view of being sincere and honest, but I do have a skeptical eye towards how Israel chooses to manage its information, because I think they've proven to us over the years that's how they tend to operate. Okay, let's bring on Old Jewish Cowboy. I'm always having a pleasure saying hi to him. How you doing, Old Jewish?
I'm doing okay. Um, you may hear my dog in the background, and I apologize for that.
It's all good.
We have some cows that get out occasionally.
It's all good.
So, anyway, I was just curious about the protests and the fact that you've got Zionists now getting on to campuses, yelling anti-Semitic stuff, and then
Yeah,
blaming it on the protesters.
yeah.
I mean, how low can you go? I mean, seriously, it's crazy
Uh,
stuff.
Pretty low, obviously, evidently.
I mean, and they show who they are, and it's like you're not fooling anybody. I mean, it's like most of the lies that they say,
Yeah.
you can easily catch. Starting with the 40 baby thing.
What are your thoughts on the rest of the atrocities that were alleged, as far as the ovens and the unaliving of children, and the women being all sorts of mutilations and this, that, and the other? Is there any validity to that? Is it possible? Is it propaganda? Where do you fall on that?
Well, here's the one thing: Haaretz lists everybody who was unalive that day. Okay,
Okay.
and they list who they are, and according to them, 500 and some were military, and 70 some were policemen, meaning 650 of them were actually military.
Oh, okay. That's bigger than I thought.
Yeah, out of the so if you really look at it from a perspective of who the Israelis are going after, we know that at least 30%, or I should say at least 70% of women and children are being unalived. So if you look at it from that perspective, Hamas did a better job. They actually got over 55% that were military.
Okay.
So the idea that these were all innocent civilians, I'm sorry, that's not true. They attacked our cars.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the question is, at the Nova Festival and in the different kibbutz or kibbutzim, how much of the military response may have affected the numbers versus just the H group doing whatever it chose to do?
Well, that's the other thing is we know for a fact that the Israelis don't care about their own people when it comes to if there's a H group around. They will blow up their own people just as well as they will H group. So again, we don't know how many at the actual rave were actually blown away by Apache helicopters, uh, piloted by Israelis. We don't know.
Yeah.
Now we could know because the Israelis aren't good enough at doing forensics. They could actually find out what happened to each one, and tell you how they died. They don't, which again kind of tells you a lot, right? I mean, whatever they exclude obviously isn't in their favor. And so the idea that there was a whole bunch of sex. The other thing is they're talking about essays while children are being bombed and unalive today. I'm sorry, but that you don't get to call yourself a victim of 6 months ago while you're unaliving people today. That's crazy stuff.
The other thing is that independent agencies have offered to come in and help with the investigation of the claims of SA, and they've all been rejected. So that tells you something right there too. If they had plenty of evidence, they would want independent agencies to come in and corroborate it for them because that would give more legitimacy to the claims.
Exactly. And that's the other thing. They don't want the UN coming in. In fact, look at what happened on this budget, or I should say the money that was just given to them, right? The 95 billion. Out of that, there was a thing in there where they were not supposed to give any money to the UNRWA, the United Nations Refugee Organization that provided food, right? No evidence.
I can prove you're all anti-Semites, really, in one.
Hold on, Bearju, we're taking turns here. You'll have to give you a turn if you wait.
Sure.
I promise you'll get a chance to speak. I won't interrupt you when you do. Just don't interrupt everybody else. Thank you so much. Okay, please continue, Jewish Cowboy. But just to let you know the order, we're going to go to Roland Dharma, then I Am Palestinian, then Bearju, and then Alisa.
Everybody else, all the other countries have gone ahead and basically reinstated the money they were given to the UNRWA. Every one of them. We are the only country that said we will not give them money for a year. And the reason the other countries said that they would have kept the money out if they were shown proof by the Israelis. They were shown absolutely no proof that anybody associated with the UNRWA was actually in the attacks on October 7th. Absolutely none. There's no proof at all. We, as a stupid country, we just took their word for it. But everybody else asked for actual proof. They couldn't show it. And so everybody has reinstated. Everybody. Even the UK has gone ahead and reinstated. The only one who hasn't is us, and that's because we passed this stupid law. When we gave them $26 billion, we also said we wouldn't give any money to UNRWA for a year, which was ridiculous. Again, based only on their word. That's it.
You're muted, Chip.
I was just going to ask you, is it okay if we turn the mic over to Roland Dharma and come back to you once we turn around the horn? Okay, Roland, why don't you go ahead if you want to jump in?
Yeah. Hey, man. How you doing? I haven't talked to you in a while.
Pretty good.
Hey, Ruby.
Yeah.
I dipped in on one of the Pro Zios live, and I was like, ooh, this is going to be juicy because you had just come in, and I had to step away for a minute, and then when I came back, it said everybody had blocked you. I was like, oh man, I missed it already. And I remember that she was interrogating you, saying, "How dare you say that? Uh, how dare you say that? We face the same kind." I find it interesting that they have to center their pain and their trauma to the exclusion of everyone else's. You know, to the point where they they will not acknowledge or recognize uh, how many casualties have occurred on the other side. It's always it's very vague
Yeah.
when you ask the Israeli supporters what kind of numbers do we see, and then they're sarcastic like, well, but the 30,000, 17 of them are Hamas, and you know, like, okay, well, show the proof. Cool, and there's all these raging accusations, but never any hard proof. Their only proof is the IDF, whereas everybody else is trying to bring NGOs and Doctors Without Borders and various UN agencies. We're trying to bring different sets of analytics to talk about these things, and they're like, no, wrong. They're biased. But then they give us the IDF numbers, and that's hardcore. I think what I saw when I was stepped in on that panel and they were trying to interrogate you was you had gone straight to the heart of their message. Their big gaslighting lie is, look at the atrocity of 10/7. How dare you even question it? And if you do, then we'll be completely irrational and not have any conversation with you. How dare you? They're just trying to go forward like this is what happened, and nobody should question it at all. And
Yep.
there's so many holes in the entire story. I asked this question of Prozio yesterday, and I actually got an honest answer back. I was very pleased. But I asked him, how far is the distance from the east side of Gaza to the Jordanian border? And it's roughly 75 miles or so. And I asked him, why then would they have an Israeli music festival right next to the Gaza border when you had 75 miles of open desert to run these things, or to put your kibbutzes, but you got to put it right up next to an area that you people call, that you people believe harbor, Jew-hating terrorists, Schmerus. So, I want to give other people a chance to talk, but those are my thoughts. I was with you today, but didn't get a chance to chime in. So.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I got to tell the audience it wasn't pleasant, and what I'm going to do is just to be fair and let people know what I try to do when I have guests who differ is to give them extra, respect and room to share their views and not step on them or talk down to them or lecture them or require them to see it from my point of view or they can't be here. That's not the point of a conversation, and I really don't like it when people choose to behave that way, no matter how much you may dislike the person's point of view or the person themselves. Anyway, okay, we're gonna go to I Am Palestinian, and then when we do go to Bear Jew, I would imagine with a name like Bear Jew, the person's probably pro-Israeli with a Star of David. So in the comments, please be respectful. No name calling, no crazy shit. And anybody who's on the panel, please stay muted until we move back and forth a bit. Okay, let's go to I Am Palestinian. How you doing?
Hey Chip, good, and also old Jew, good to hear you, my friend. I hope you're doing great. Chip, you're welcome to skip me. I'll talk after either Bear Jew or
Okay.
Alyssa.
Thank you so much. That sounds good. Okay, Bear Jew, it's your turn.
Thank you for the wonderful welcome, Chip. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Very welcoming. I like that. It's very different to other panels I've been on, pro-Pally panels, so that's nice. Like you said, if views differ, that's fine. But I think there should always be an element of respect, respect in the sense of no personal attacks.
Absolutely.
That's cool. All right, great. As long as we have that, that's fine. What I wanted to say was that I just feel like there are so many holes in the other side, and I want to debunk them together right now on this panel.
Can I just ask you a favor? If you do like one or two or three at a time, so I don't lose track, and then we can go back and forth a bit.
No,
Would
no,
that be okay?
let's do one at a time to make it really
Okay,
easy.
perfect. Sounds great. Go ahead.
So first one is, what do you think Israel's response should have been after October 7th?
I'd like to answer that.
Well, just a sec. I'll let you come in second. Okay, I'll give my opinion first. If you mind having a
If,
second
no,
person
only
share
if
their
you
view.
were if you were the prime minister of Israel.
Well, boy, first of all, that'd be a tough job. Let's face it, that was a difficult place to be in for anybody. Now, I know that Netanyahu and company are pretty hard right, so we probably expected something a little harsh, which we saw. My best guess is this, and this is easy for me to say, not having known the people in the army and not having responsibility for their family members if troops die. But the best way to go after a guerrilla enemy, having been in the army, first of all, let's tell the audience the truth. It is an incredibly difficult enemy to fight in a built-up area where they have the advantage of surprise with underground tunnels and maneuver.
100%.
It's one of the most difficult things to do. In fact, it's next to impossible. So anybody who goes into that territory, that takes a lot of bravery. I admire them, and I wouldn't want to be that person. I mean, I was in the desert with lots of room to maneuver, which I liked quite a bit. Now, having said that, the right way to do it with the rules of war is to use limited air power and then mostly special forces to root out the enemy. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which side you're on, the Israelis chose to take a different tact. And I think they used a little bit of a stretch of the truth in some cases, saying they thought, so and so might have been here. So they kind of dropped this, that, and the other. Now, the reason I say that is not because I have proof of that, but the American president, Joe Biden, after about maybe 3 months of this, publicly said, which is pretty crazy, that the indiscriminate bombing has to stop. And so if the American president, after having had very detailed conversations with the prime minister, said something to that effect publicly, which shocked me, there must be something to that, or else he wouldn't have said that, because his cabinet was telling him this is bad optics, and that's what it's been, unfortunately. So I don't blame the Israelis for wanting to avoid its casualty of its troops, but at the same time, I think it's dug itself into quite a hole from the perspective of public opinion because of how it's chosen to proceed and the number of people that have unfortunately died.
I would perhaps have to agree with everything you just said. It's very difficult for Israel to risk all their troops. Why should they risk all their troops after what they saw on October 7th as well? Especially. But my final question I have is, and this is a really serious question, and I don't understand it. I really don't get it. Why is it that the whole world goes cuckoo and the whole world is upside down when Israel is trying to, or however you want to call it, defend themselves or defeat the enemy or whatever you want to call it, right? But when Assad is killing and was killing millions of people in Syria, no one did a thing. Can someone explain that to me?
Can I explain that to him?
I can
Yeah.
I'd
answer
like to
that.
answer
I
too.
think I can answer that.
Well, who
Please.
wants? I'll tell you what. Let's let Sammy go first, and then Roland.
Just real quick,
I'm genuinely asking the question because I don't understand. Tell me.
Okay.
you know what it is? Especially in America, America doesn't send the military and the financial aid that we do to Israel, to Syria.
No, I'm not
So
talking about America. I'm talking about the world. Why does the world go crazy?
Oh,
what do you mean? You act like the world wasn't upset when Bashar al-Assad was doing it.
They weren't. It wasn't crazy like this.
No,
It absolutely was.
No, it wasn't. I'm sorry. It was not crazy
It
like this.
absolutely was. It absolutely was. There was plenty of protests. There was plenty of pushback.
Like this? Like this? Are you joking?
Like I said, the only reason why this is unique, especially in America and Great Britain, is because we don't financially and militarily enable them. So that's why it is a little more and it's unique. But at the same time, you can't say there was no outrage or outroar towards the Syrian government,
Not like
especially
this.
on.
Not like this. I'm sorry. Not like this.
No, I said, yeah, it's unique in that way because America and the UK and the greater Western world doesn't financially and military support Israel. But I don't understand. Well, even if that's the case, even if nobody came to support the Syrian people or came to, why would that matter?
It matters because why is the whole world gone upside down when it's Israel, but when it's Syria, it's okay. No one says shit.
Is it okay if
I
I
think
jump in
it's
for 1 second?
Can I?
Israel has been doing it for the past 77 years.
Yeah, it's a number of
yes.
factors, I believe. I'll be quick. So I think there's three things involved. One is the longstanding nature of the conflict, but a lot of people weren't aware of that until social media brought stuff directly to their phone, which hasn't happened so much in Syria. The amount of attention and social media coverage that this has gotten, which is unfortunate for the Israelis, because over the decades they've been able to control the narrative in an amazingly efficient way. But in this case, certain information just could not be contained, which is one of the reasons why they've expelled journalists now, because obviously this is hurting their ability to contain the message. And therefore, that seeing things with your own two eyes is an emotional experience. That you can hear something in the news, you can hear about people dying, but when you see the body parts, when you see the building collapse, when you see the person chopped up, it's hard to not have an emotional reaction. And that has hurt. Yeah, that has not hurt. That has not helped the Israeli cause.
Yeah, Barry, the same thing happened during the Vietnam War. We saw every day, we saw the bodies of American soldiers, and that was what ended the war. And the other thing is that Israel is the only democracy that calls itself a democracy
And the most moral.
and that is doing this. Okay? Everybody else is a dictator. Putin's a dictator, Assad's a dictator. I mean, you want to compare yourself with dictatorships. Now, if you call yourself a dictatorship and you want to call Bibi a fascist and he runs the country, that's fine. Then at least call yourself. Be open about it and this is who we are. But if you're going to try to say that you are a democracy and you have Western values, you don't get to genocide people. Simple.
And we can't. That's what you basically say. How come they can do it, but we can't?
Is it my turn, Chip?
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you're ready to jump in, let's.
All right, I'm ready to jump in.
Did you?
Anyways,
hold on real quick.
I always
Hold on real quick. One sec. I have to give Bearju about 30 seconds if he wants to respond. Did you want to respond, Bearju? Okay, go ahead, Palestinian.
Yeah, I always enjoy when old Jew, the cowboy, when he explains it. Anyways, my short version is that, like I said, 75, 77 years of occupation, claiming for democracy, yet within the boundaries, you're oppressing, suppressing, segregating a certain group of people, yet you're receiving billions of dollars each single year. You have possession of nuclear weapon. The government wakes Israel. They try to, evaluate, shall we bomb this country? Shall we bomb that country? Shall we bomb Iran? There are no other countries other than two countries in the world, Chip. And this might, for Americans, that they wake up every single morning and they evaluate which country they should bomb. And one of them is Israel. So that's the reason why people are done with this and don't want to accept it anymore. You're muted, Chip.
I'm glad that Bearju had a chance to come up. If you're still listening, thanks for coming up. Please come back, and thanks for being civil. That was a good conversation. Thanks for asking those questions. Okay, I am Palestinian. Did you want to continue?
No, I'm good. I just want to give him. I had some other stuff to say, but since he brought up,
okay. All right, great. I think Elisa was next, I believe.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah.
I just wanted to speak to the point. I can't remember who said that, and if they're still there, but somebody had mentioned something about why they had a festival so close to the Gazan border, and that's actually something I was until I heard someone speak about it. I think it was actually Abby Martin who talked about it, and my understanding is that these kibbutz that live that are all around Israel. There's some up north and close to the Gaza Strip as well. They are leftist. So, I mean, if you understand the concept of a kibbutz, everybody lives there, everybody works and lives off the land, and everybody's equal. And those people that are very leftist are the biggest sympathizers with Palestinians. And if you allow me to speculate, this isn't a fact. I'm just speculating here. So let's just entertain the idea. I just find it interesting that if there was some kind of internal influence from the IDF or from the Israeli government that first of all, we know that they knew about the attack, right? So it's just interesting that it's just an interesting coincidence that the attack happened on a group of people who are the most sympathetic to Palestinians and who have the greatest support towards the Palestinians and them having their own state and freedom, etc.
Yeah.
And if you allow me to speculate, I think it's the perfect way to get people to be on your side. If your side is saying, I want war, I want to kill all the Palestinians, I want to bulldoze through whatever land they have left so I can build my hotels, build my apartment complexes, and build my settlements. It's the perfect way to stir up the pot within your nation and say, hey, you guys are leftists, you guys were supporting the Palestinians. Look what Hamas did to you.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's definitely that. Real quick, I just want to. There's a video that I made when I first got on TikTok within the first week, and there's a Latin term. It's cui bono, and it stands for who benefits. And so things can be not just this or that, but it can be this and this and this. So I talked about Netanyahu and his political dilemma, the protest in Israel, Iran and their potential involvement in this, because obviously, they want to destabilize Israel and Saudi Arabia connection. Obviously, that's their geopolitical aim. And of course, the energy issues, which also go with that as far as pipelines and the plan from India through the Mediterranean. So there are a lot of things at play. But yeah, think of it this way. What a convenient way for a hard right politician to send a message to his left-wing critics to allow something to go through and run roughshod through their communities and then put this festival much closer, knowing that this was. So that's if there was knowledge. Nobody could say there was. But it was awfully convenient the way it all played out.
it's a talking point too, Chip and Alicia. I've heard this in Zio Lives where they're like, look at the response from H group. They're so horrible that they even turned their sympathetic leftist Israelis against them. Look at that. And it's like they keep pushing that. And that seems really suspicious to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also just want to add to what Arma is saying that my understanding, I've been in Israel. I was over there by the Gaza Strip, but I was only there once, so I don't have a too deep understanding of Israeli society. But what I have heard is that being a leftist is quote unquote not cool. Okay, the right-wing government in Israel has had power for so many years. I mean, take a look at how long Netanyahu has had power. I think it's like 16 years or something like that. So over time, having the socialist, leftist view on life has become frowned upon in Israeli society.
There is
Can
no
I
left.
can I just comment quickly, please? Just
Go
very
ahead.
quickly. Just a
Go ahead.
question. How can someone that's in a settlement be for the people? That's what I want to know.
When you say be for the people, can you elaborate
For the
what you mean by
Palestinian people, for support, for because she's saying that she's saying
well,
that yeah.
here's what they meant. They're more sympathetic to the plight of Palestinians, politically speaking, even though they reside in Israel in what would be
Wow.
considered settlements given law. So it's kind of an oxymoron, but they're there. They figure they're there anyway. They were the kind of people that would bring people in and try to help them throughout their problems in life, maybe give them some money or give them opportunities or whatever. They were sort of like lefties, like they want to help people. They're kind of more socially oriented. And then of course those same people got harmed by the militants. The militants weren't the same people who actually lived there or went there, but they were people who they believe gave information to the militants who went in there and did what they did. So anyway, I don't know. I know what you mean, though. There's mixed feelings about that because they were sympathetic, but they also lived in territory that was technically not theirs to take, right?
Yeah, can
Exactly.
I just add to that? I just want to quickly add to that because when I was in Israel, I was there with the Jewish Federation and of Los Angeles, which is the second largest Jewish community in the world. You would think it's New York, but it's actually LA. And we visited multiple kibbutz, and a lot of the members of those kibbutz, they were talking about the tunnels and Hamas and all those experiences that they had. But it was surprising to me that even though that they were closest in proximity to the Gaza Strip, they were the ones who had the most empathy, because when they spoke about it, they always mentioned we want the peace with the Palestinians. We want to have good relations with our neighbors. It is Jewish it's Jewish religion to love your neighbors and to be at peace, tikkun olam. But the more you moved into the city, that's when you would see people be more reserved and with Arabs and people who weren't Jewish. So I just thought that was interesting experience and something I saw with my own two eyes.
Hi.
Yeah, so I want to do I want to Ella, real quick before we go. I want to do one quick informal poll. This is something that was on my mind today, and
Hello.
we'll see how it works out. I don't know how to do the polls on the TikTok. I apologize. I should learn how to do it. But here's my question for you. So, as a concept, the world right now has the influences that it has. We know the U.S. policy is impacted by AIPAC and other groups, maybe powerful people who support Israel. Let's just call that fabric sort of the undertone of Zionism and its effect on the world. So, here's a question I'd like to ask. If you believe that it's relatively benign and that's a bunch of silliness, I want you to type 0 into the chat. And if you believe that Zionism does play a key role in influencing world affairs and economic policies, militarism, I want you to type the number 1. And if you feel it influences it and you'd like to see it go away, I want you to type the number 2. Okay, go ahead. Okay, a lot of 2s coming through. There's a few 1s coming in as well. I haven't seen a 0 yet. Thank you for
Somebody on the
answering. But
Jay on
a
the
0.
panel put a 0 up. We should hear from Jay.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, we welcome all people regardless of their views and give people a chance to speak and hopefully have a civil dialogue if we disagree, and that's fair.
Wait, so I just want to clarify.
Okay.
So 0 means like it's relatively insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, that's fine. Somebody put down like 7 2s. Jay, would you like to jump into the conversation and share either about that or other stuff we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean,
and then we'll go to
yeah,
Elo after that. Sorry, Elo. Go ahead.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I guess like in terms of like the general geopolitical situation, I mean, I'd say like the war in terms of between Russia and Ukraine was far more significant than what's happening, I guess, between Israel and Hamas. I'm not trying to say, I'm trying to downplay it, but in terms of the geopolitical ramifications, the Russia and Ukraine war will be more significant, in my opinion.
Okay, so you believe that in terms of overall conflict, you're saying that the Russia-Ukraine thing is more impactful on world affairs than is the Israel-Palestine conflict?
Yeah.
And when you make that argument, how so? Like, what do you think the impact is different, and how is it different?
How so? I mean, there's just like a lot more like countries involved. I mean, in terms of the Russia-Ukraine war. I mean, in terms of the NATO alliance is the largest in the world in terms of GDP and aid, I guess, to Ukraine.
Did you have a thought about it when it first kicked off back in February of 2022? Do you believe that Russia was the aggressor? Do you believe it was a legitimate defense of their territory?
Yeah, I mean, I do believe Russia is the aggressor. I mean, I do support Ukraine, okay. I guess, to be clear.
And are you in favor of the funds that have been allocated? I guess it's now up to maybe 170 billion or something now that's gone there. Are you for the funding, continued funding?
For the continued
funding of the war effort in Ukraine to back the Ukrainians.
I mean, I guess within moderation. I mean, yeah.
Do you think that 107 is moderation, or is back increased?
Well, I mean, I think is like it depends on like how they count it, because I mean, they're sending over military equipment. That's also counted, I guess, as value. I guess, but.
Yeah. True. So, in terms of the territory that Russia has formally annexed, the territory formerly called, the region called the Donbass, Donetsk, Luhansk, the Mariupol region, and maybe even over to Odessa if it goes there. Do you think that territory is going to be retaken if the military effort is continued to be funded and supported by NATO / the United States?
Do I think it's if it's not
Is
funded
it?
by
It's possible. Do you think it's possible if the money keeps pouring in that can be accomplished, or do you think that's a done deal? The territory is not returning to Ukraine.
I mean, to be honest, I'm not completely sure.
Okay. Have you followed someone named Scott Ritter at all? You ever heard of Scott Ritter?
No.
So he's a good name to follow. He's an interesting analyst. There's also a guy named Colonel Douglas McGregor. He's another resource to check out. There's a professor from the University of Chicago who's a very well-known geopolitical analyst named John Mearsheimer. So I don't know if you have a chance to make notes. This is being recorded, by the way, so if you forget the names, if you want to come back and review it, it'll be on the YouTube and Rumble channel. The link's in my bio. But yeah, those are three good names to check out. And the arguments that they tend to make is that they believe that it's kind of a losing effort and that the Russian military has the dominant position. It's better funded, it's better trained, it has experience, it has the greater artillery capability, which is what this war is basically, is a big artillery war, and that they feel it was justified. And if you listen to the backstory that they share, a lot of people have come to agree with that point of view. So it's funny, when I was first watching the war break out, I had studied it, of course, over the years since like 2014 when the coup happened. And so I had a different perspective, but a lot of people had Ukrainian flags on their front porch when this first started happening in my neighborhood. And I just don't think most people had that opportunity to have the backstory, or most of them probably would not have hung the flag, or at least been a little bit more, down the middle about that. But I'm very saddened by the death of Ukrainian soldiers, obviously. It's been devastating to the Ukrainian people, continues to be. And it is a U.S. proxy war. Let's face it, the U.S. is using the Ukrainian military to try to degrade Russia, and it's not really working too well, unfortunately, and we're spending a lot more money. Ukraine, I don't believe that Vladimir Putin, and for those of you, maybe somebody thinks differently, I don't believe that Putin has desires to, quote, take all of Ukraine or move over to Poland or take over the rest of Eastern Europe, because people say he's trying to reestablish the former Soviet Union. That's just silliness. That's third grade type of analysis. But anyway, so if you do some digging, you'll find all this out. Don't trust me, but those are three good resources: Colonel Douglas McGregor, Scott Ritter, and Professor John Mearsheimer. You can even listen to Jeffrey Sachs, the economist and former advisor to the government. Anyway, interesting thing to talk about. I promised Ella we would go for a second. Is it okay if I have you hold on for a second, Jay? Thank you. Hey, Ella.
Hello, hi. I haven't been TikToking for a while, but I thought I'd jump up here because I think I've got some experience of Palestinians that others may not.
Welcome back. Welcome back to TikTok. Come on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I was married. I'm in the early 2000s. I'm older than I look. In the early 2000s, I got married to one of my closest friends, and he was a student in the UK, and he was from Gaza. And so I learned about the conflict, about the what I would call apartheid, what Israelis probably wouldn't call apartheid, the situation in the Holy Land. I learned about that a long time ago. And when we first met, we had that conversation where it's like, oh, I'm from Palestine. I was like, oh, but do you mean Israel? It's like, no, Palestine. We went through that. And I was like, well, isn't that where people have, boomed themselves on buses, and that was what I had seen in the news growing up. And I was like, oh my gosh, what kind of people? And he said, and I always recall, he said, you don't understand what they do to us in my country. And during the years that we were together, piece by piece, I saw just how cruel and really nasty the Palestinians were treated by Israel. And it almost comes to a shock. It comes to a shock to me now because my eyes were opened to things that were happening. It comes to a shock to me now, mostly more than anything else, that the Israelis don't seem to be aware of the things that I was aware of. So that really, I'm a Christian. I spent some time living as a Muslim. My ex-husband, he's alive, by the way. He's alive. He made it out of Gaza, which is great.
Good.
with his 3 children who have British citizenship, and yet were pulled from the rubble. It's not in the news because he wants to protect his children and their identity. He doesn't feel safe, But I'm Christian now, and I pray for both sides. Yeah, I don't pray against anyone. I don't wish any harm or ill doing on people. But I do really pray that the Israelis do find a way to, in this short space of time, understand what their country has been doing and what their parents and their grandparents, what they've allowed to happen to, and be able to figure that out in their mind. Because it's hard to think that your own would do something bad. And I can see that. But there was, I was in the UK and we received a phone call to say that, what would have been my cousin-in-law had been basically executed by IDF. And a short time later, it was on the international news, so I lived it. I wasn't able to just go and visit, in Gaza and spend time there. I wanted to desperately go and live there. I wanted to, to have an experience of being there in the Holy Land, but I wasn't able to. And he would cry at night, He was in his 20s, yeah? He would cry at night, not knowing if he was ever going to be able to go back and see his parents again. Nobody should have to. I mean, it was £40 return on a plane to Greece, just across the water, But he couldn't do that. He couldn't just go home and see his family. And this is before the whole internet, really took off. So he didn't get to see, will he ever see his mother's face again? These were very real things, and it's a very real and true emotional torture that they've been going through all these years. When they leave, they don't know if they'll ever be able to go back. There was an occasion where he misplaced this, and I remember it as being pink, but people telling me these cards are different colors, but I'm sure at that time it was pink, and it was the identity card. And he was absolutely distraught because he said if he can't find that, he may never be able to get back into his country. He can go to the border, but they won't issue it again to him. And the Israelis won't issue it again. So it is, and it was, and it has been an open-air prison. Even when I was hearing this battered around, I thought, well, it isn't a prison. But actually, the fact that you have to have, it's so hard to visit, and it's so hard to leave, and it's so hard to get by on a daily basis being there, it is like a prison. Sorry, I've talked for a while. I'll be quiet again for a bit, but I just wanted to share that. And they are very chilled. I remember actually, I had 2 brother-in-laws who are alive. They're not in Gaza now. They're in different places in the world. And I remember, because they were older, and I remember asking them, because I would hear all these things battered around, and I was reading about Islam and different things. They were completely unreligious, by the way. Muslim by birthright, but absolutely no interest whatsoever in any type of organized faith. Had no interest in it whatsoever. And I asked them, people are talking about that there should be they should reinstate the Ottoman Empire, so it would all be Islamic area. And they said this is ridiculous, and I was told off not to think about these things or say these things, because there's Christians that live there, there's Jewish people that live there, there's Muslim, everybody lives there, and it's okay. Yeah, there's this problem. Yeah. But actually, so this idea that unfortunately there is an idea amongst some Muslims that that Gaza is just a Muslim ummah, and we've got to go in and just and sort of take it back, and it's going to be an Islamic place. That's really not what the Palestinians that I've ever met and that I know and that I've spoken to, and even more recently that I speak to, that they even want. It's their country.
Yeah, a lot
it's
of times
their,
we
it's their
hear the
country.
conversation that we hear the conversation that it's that all the Palestinians want to do is unalive all the Jews and whatever.
No,
That's not it at all. What they
not at all.
want is autonomy and dignity and the ability to have a territory that doesn't involve someone taking your land, someone pushing
Yes.
you off and mistreating you
Yeah.
and bullying you. And says, we're going to let I Am Palestinian jump in. Please hang around though,
Mhm.
and we'll see if we can get back around the horn.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
Thank you.
Just want to add a few points. Jay, you do know that logistic when there's a war that costs a lot, and Chip knows more about it. That sending stuff to Ukraine will cost so much, and then what Russians are good at in terms of war, artillery, they're very good at. They're not that good at everything, but they're within the range. So it's Ukraine. It's almost impossible for them. So they're just being used by NATO and America, to how Chip say that, to the great Russians. Old Jewish, I remember some times ago, you did mention this when we had a conversation, and you did say that if Israel wanted to bring peace, they can actually do it tomorrow. And I do believe that they can, but I don't think that's what they want. If they want it, I mean, look at it, they can't get along with a single neighboring countries, right? But if they really wanted to, they can do that. I swear to God, the land is big enough for both group, and they can actually do that. But I don't think it's within their interest.
They are happy with the idea that 60% of the population right now thinks it's perfectly fine to starve Gaza. When you have that many people who believe that it's okay to starve children, they don't want peace. They just don't.
Ruby. Yeah, it's
Right, Chip. Just last one. The transparent, even about the
well, that's okay. Yeah, finish up.
about what happened. That can do that. That can invite the international community. That can bring back the attention they always wanted, where people around the world and countries, they feel sympathy and empathy for them. But I don't think that's what they want. So
Yeah, I think it's clear they've been trying to scuttle any sort of a deal for a long time. And that old rhetoric we hear that the Israelis have given the Arabs 5 wonderful offers and they've turned them all down is just not true. Getting back to what the public doesn't know, I thought that was a great point that LO raised. A lot of Israelis and a lot of pro-Israel people around the world, they are told a much different story from birth as to how this all played. And they're literally told that the people train kids to hate Jews, and that all they want, the only thing is to either die for the chance to kill Jews or to kill Jews. And that's the only reason. And therefore, anything that happens to a Palestinian is justified to protect Jews and Israelis, or it's all part of their security effort. And anytime someone is unalived, it's because they were doing something wrong vis-a-vis like the T word. That's the story they get. So when they, first of all, they don't hear much about what happens, but if they ever do, that's what it gets chalked up to. Every single Palestinian male over the age of 12 is considered a T word, which of course is absolutely absurd. But that's how this population looks at Palestinians. And they look down on them as Arabs. They look, they're less than, they're not Jewish, and therefore they're expendable. And that's the attitude on most people in Israel, unfortunately, and a lot of people around the world. And when they see people protesting like this, they can't get their head around why would they be doing that? We're the good guys. We're off when there's collateral damage. We're not doing anything on purpose. Why are these people so angry at us? Why is it us? Oh my God, they must hate the Jews, us poor old Jews, this little country in the Middle East with all these Arabs around us. Why can't we have our home? Why do they want to unallow? It just goes on and on and on until somebody becomes aware of the facts, like Max Blumenthal or Norman Finkelstein or Ilyan Pape or Gabor Mate, or going down the line of people that are famous who have learned the truth about this conflict, and it completely shatters the narrative that I just described. And then, of course, if they're intellectually or honest, after the story, it's just a mirage. It's it doesn't exist. And had I been supporting this, I'm sure all Jews out there like this, because I don't know if anyone is like within the Zionist spirit of influence. It is very cult-like in terms of how the system works. Any challenge to it, you get shot. Literally, I have a friend right now. Throat. He's Jewish. For more conflict, he's been shot by his entire community because of expressions. Walk towards a better spot.
Yeah.
Chip, may I add something to what you just said?
Of course.
Okay, I think you said, of course, it's kind of hacking right now, but I just want to
Go
confirm
ahead.
what you just said because it is so true about the brainwashing and the propaganda because I did not grow up Jewish. I am from Jewish descent. I am originally Russian, and a lot of Russian Eastern European people lost their Judaism because of the Soviet Union.
Here before.
And so I found my Judaism as an
Ruby.
adult, and when I went to Israel with the Jewish Federation, I was there for 10 days. And let me tell you guys, there was not one day that passed where we didn't hear about how scary the Palestinians were and how terrified we should be of the people on the other side. Not one day passed. We visited so many different organizations, nonprofits, kibbutz, and all this, and all kinds of different groups. And not one day passed where they didn't talk about how scary Palestinians are and how afraid we should be and how many threats there are in Israel. And the the alternative is just don't say anything. Like you can say good things, you can say bad things, or you can choose to not say anything. And it's just interesting that the choice was always let's talk about how scared we should be of the Palestinians.
Yeah.
And it worked. I was terrified being there. We went on a bus to the Dead Sea, and they literally told us on the bus that there were terrorists hiding in the mountains and the hills, and that they
Wow.
were watching us while we were on the bus, and that we should be scared, and it was super dangerous driving through. Like,
Hold on a second. Hold on. What was one voice? So Apple user said, this is all kind of thing. So 10.7 didn't happen, question mark, question mark. Of course it happened. What are you talking about, Apple? Listen, just because people recognize that there's an indoctrination process about the framing of the situation doesn't mean anybody's denying the atrocities of 10.7. As far as the civilians are concerned, that's to be condemned as much as any other intentional harm of civilians, whether it's by the Israelis or the Palestinian militia. But the soldiers that were engaged that day were fair game, right? Just like you believe that militants are fair game when you go into Gaza. So that's the difference. Anyway, please continue.
well, I just find it interesting, like Apple users saying, Elisa, you are wrong. How can you tell me that I'm wrong when it's my own experience? I literally was in Israel, and this is what I experienced. And I think I have a perception of it because I didn't grow up with Zionistic propaganda. I have an outside view. I'm an outsider that wanted to convert to Judaism. So I think I have a pretty neutral stance going in. So you can't tell someone wrong when they have an experience about it just because it questions um, the information that you have been fed your whole life. So I just don't think it's fair to tell someone, oh, you're wrong about your own experience. This is my experience. This is what I lived through.
I think.
Elisa,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead, Ella.
Can I ask, do you feel like looking back now, do you feel that it was intentional to make you afraid to make all of those people that would make pilgrimage from America to instill in them the fear? Or do you think that the people that were sharing that with you truly believed it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And let me tell you guys a story, something that happened in Israel when I was there. And this experience just really stuck with me, and it's something I still think about to this day and wonder exactly what happened. But long story short, it was Friday night. Friday is Shabbat. Shabbat is all about community. It's all about family. It's all about loving your neighbor and connection, right? Spiritual connection to God and connection with your community. And the Jewish Federation had organized an outdoor Shabbat by the sea, and and then we were like standing like in a big circle and holding hands, and they were saying some prayers and all, the rituals that they go through for Shabbat. And I remember there was like two or three kids. I don't know if they were Palestinian. I don't know where they were from, but they spoke Arabic, and they were just like little Arab kids, and they were kind of looking at us very curiously and trying to figure out what was going on. And the majority of the people in the circle, they were like looking at these kids and almost like in fear, like scared of them. And I remember being like, oh my God, these are kids. Like Shabbat is all about solidarity and community and building the bridges between people. So in my naivete, if you could call it that, I was like, okay, you kids, come join us. It doesn't matter if you're Muslim or Jewish. You know, Shabbat is about love. Come
Yeah.
join our circle of love and friendship. And when I did that, it was like they wanted to come in and like be a part of it, but the majority of the people that were in the circle, they kind of like they were, I could tell that they were hesitant in like letting, like they
Hmm.
weren't saying like, oh yeah, come on in. They were kind of like staring at them, and it became a very awkward situation because I was like inviting them in, but you know, some of my mutuals didn't really want them to participate. And in my head, after that experience, I was just thinking, well, there were leaders of our community there, and they saw that happen. And if you're a leader of a Jewish community, isn't it in your interest to grasp any opportunity you have to build bridges between people? Even if it's just a little Shabbat that you're having on Friday night, or if it's like a massive diplomatic peace agreement, it doesn't matter. It's everybody's responsibility to make sure that we build bridges between people and that we have good relations to everybody. So in terms of
Well,
answering
I
the
want to share
question,
something with you on that front, if it's okay.
yeah,
One of the observations I've made, and somebody who is from these communities can correct, but at least where I live, there's a very vibrant and strongly tight knit Jewish community. And generally speaking, nothing is everybody, of course, ever. But for the most part, the families really stick together. The community doesn't necessarily like go out and intermingle much with others. In fact, the zip code, there's a joke in our area, there's a zip code number where almost 95% of Jewish people live in where I live. And it's all concentrated, and very few non-Jewish people live in that zip code. It's like 98% Jewish. I think that's indicative, and that may lead into some of the historical inequities that have occurred. I think you just mentioned a second ago the hesitancy to kind of connect with others. And if you have a group of people that stick to themselves, that don't sort of kind of just assimilate into a larger group, that can lead to perception of maybe these people think they're better than us, maybe they don't think we're worth their time, whatever that whole thing may be. So I don't know what role that might play, but in a way I kind of admire it. I'll give you an example of one more thing. When it comes to legal issues or family problems, or I guess child SA or whatever you want to call it, a lot of those issues are dealt with the community. They don't go directly to the law enforcement outside the community. It's very, very rare that something even as egregious as anything short of red rum goes outside the community. It's a very tight knit, very connected, very self-managing organism that makes up a lot of different people, but who have a connected sense of identity. And that's an observation. So that may play into some of what you saw there, that reluctance to sort of intermingle, maybe driven by some of that, but maybe not. I don't know.
Okay.
do you want to say something?
I just wanted to kind of make an observation, spitball around here. Somebody in the comments was saying most Israelis are in trauma because of October 7th. And I think that's true. I had postulated that before, that if we can look at this from a sociological point of view, Israelis and Jews, the wider diaspora, have a collective trauma in their DNA, and especially, I think it's especially concentrated in Israel because, look, put that aside. We here in the West can look at Iran and say, oh, wow, that's a really, self-contained, strange kind of culture and customs that they have. And we can sit out and judge them for that. Well, I feel in the same way that we could analyze Israel in the same way. I feel like a lot of them, the society is kind of steeped in Old Testament chosen ones. We have to protect ourselves. This is the land of,
Yeah,
milk and honey. It's a kind of an Old Testament mentality where we're struggling to have dialogue with pro-Zios, and we're like, why aren't they listening? And
It's
because
because
it's so, I don't know what the word is.
I just want to add to what you're saying, and I believe there's no separation between church and state in Israel. So what I've heard is that the real people controlling Israel are Orthodox rabbis that are, in cahoots with Bibi, with Netanyahu. That's just something that I've heard.
Yeah, well, Bibi mentioned a phrase out of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And I'm always encouraging people to look into the Dead Sea Scrolls, and particularly one set of scrolls is called the War Scrolls, and it's very, very apocalyptic, Armageddon-like. And that's where it lists the tribes of the sons of light against the sons of darkness. And to have Bibi quoting out of that really shows a kind of a sick, apocalyptic Armageddon mindset to the whole policy of what's going on right now.
But that's exactly how you control people. You control people through fear.
Yeah.
So, I also
Real
have.
quick, there's a person in the audience who says they're a peace activist from Israel. I hope I don't pronounce their name wrong. It says it's either Ofri or Ofri. And Ofri earlier asked a question which I thought I should address too. Ofri said, "Chip, have you been to Israel? And why are you?" This is his words or her words. Why are you so obsessed with this issue? So no, I've not visited. I would love to go. It's supposed to be a beautiful place. I'm sure I'd have a wonderful time, absent my not so warm welcome given my my take on TikTok. But the other thing is, I wouldn't call myself obsessed with it. I speak to it often because it's something that I learned a long time ago when I was much younger. And what struck me most about it was I guess I call it an injustice. On the one sense, I kind of divide the conflict into two stages. There was one in 1948 with the establishment of the state. Obviously, we know that story. And I'm happy that some people got the benefit of that, which is a good goal to have a state to be safe. I'm sympathetic with those who got the short end of the stick, and that's putting it very nicely. And then the second part of it is post 1967. I guess that's just for you. But the bottom line is that what's happened since 1967, the sheer brutality, and by the way, this happened well before 1967, but the most that I've seen has been since 1967, just absolutely turned my stomach inside out. And like we talked earlier, I don't think most people who are pro-Israel know much about this. It's a big mystery to them. They see the wall, the separation wall, and they sort of hear once in a while about Palestinians, but they have a whole different view, and they just don't know. And I know that sounds condescending and arrogant to say, but that's been my experience. And those who do have spoken out if they have courage, which I appreciate about them. So, no, I'm not obsessed with it. I talk to it because I feel like it's an injustice and it's sort of an outrage how Israel chooses to conduct itself. Again, Palestinians aren't perfect. There have been plenty of horrific attacks, and I understand the argument that people make that, well, hey, our safety comes first, and this is the Ben Gvir argument. You don't have the right to walk on the same street as me because my safety of my family comes first. That's his attitude. That attitude, unfortunately, pervades way too many minds, especially in the policymakers and the leaders in the military and in the government. And that's why we are where we are. Palestinian lives are just not regarded the same way as Jewish lives are. Let's face it, it's true.
Yes,
Anybody want to weigh in on that?
Oh, I just wanted to share something that because Elo
Hi.
had asked me something about hatred, and I just had another story that I wanted to share, and it ties into what you just said, Chip, about Israelis not seeing Palestinians as equal and their life as equal. I remember this one time. This was in LA, and I went to a Shabbat at a woman's house. She was an elder woman, like older than me, maybe like in her 50s, 60s, 70s. I don't know. I'm really bad with guessing age, but anyway, she was definitely older than me, and she was Israeli originally. She had moved to LA, and I went to a Shabbat. She's Orthodox. She was a member of my shul. And when I went to her Shabbat, a conversation occurred that was about Palestinians. And she like immediately got very upset and said said something disparaging about Palestinians. And then I asked her, I'll never forget this. I asked her, okay, so what do you think should happen? How do we solve this issue? And her response was flat out, we need to kill them all. That's literally what she said. I'm not even exaggerating, guys. She literally said that.
Wow.
We need to kill them all. It's not, oh, I want to kill them all. It's we need, okay? And I just sat there stunned because we just came from service at our shul where the rabbi was talking about, love and community and holiness and how do we come closer to God. The whole point of Judaism is coming closer to God. You do all these things, all these rituals. There's so many rules in Judaism because you want to come closer to God. The whole goal of living a Jewish life is to become more holy. And then on a holy day of Shabbat, you're sitting here and talking about killing a bunch of people. It's like, it was insane to me. Nobody said anything to her because it would have been rude because she was like the host of the Shabbat.
Yeah.
But let me just put this into perspective. I was only in the community for a year and a half. Can you just imagine what people hear and what kind of conversations they have in private when they have been living the Jewish life for like, well, not the Jewish life. It's better to say maybe the Zionistic life for like 10 years,
Yes.
20 years, 30 years, 40 years. I was only there for a year and a half. And then another thing that happened was I was so upset about that situation that I actually went to Marianne Williamson, if you guys know her. She's actually a presidential candidate. I don't know if she still is a
Yeah.
presidential candidate, but she had like these Wednesday nights. She had these
She dropped out.
talks. Can you hear me?
Yeah, she dropped out.
Oh, okay. So Wednesday nights in LA, Marianne Williamson used to have these talks. She would invite people and then she would give this long talk and then people would be able to ask questions. And I knew that she was Jewish. So as a fellow Jew, I wanted to ask her about this experience. So I stood up and I said, hey, I have a question. She chose me. And I said, hey, I have experienced in my Jewish community some negative things that people have been saying about our Muslim brothers and sisters. My understanding is that Muslims, they are our cousins. We're from the same lineage, basically. So how would you advise me as someone who wants to do good in my community? How should I handle that when I experience that kind of language? I think that was an honest question. I think it was a pretty good question. Her response was dead ass. She said to me, you need to be careful with what you say in public and in front of other people. And that's it. That's all she said to me. That's all she had to say to me.
Wow.
And I was like,
Wow.
that's all you have to say to me. You're a spiritual leader as well. You wrote a book called Return to Love. Can you please say something else? Something else that's helpful?
I'm
Like
glad
I
she
was
dropped
shocked
out.
and I was
It's
so
shocking, isn't
embarrassed.
it? I was looking, like I've got mixed heritage, right? So I was looking online just about some things about Jamaica, and I know that there's pirate gravestones in Jamaica that have Hebrew inscriptions, because this is from, I believe, from the Portuguese Jewish pirates who the British paid to fight the Spanish. Anyway, so I was just looking at that, but I didn't realize I was looking at a Jewish page. I was just reading about that part of history, and somebody popped up, when it just pops up, and I thought it was just like a bot or something. They're like, "Hi, how are you? I'm just checking on people, seeing how you're feeling after October the 7th." And I replied sort of, "Oh, sorry, is this a bot? Are you?" It's like, "No, I'm Rabbi whoever, and I'm just checking in on people." And I thought, well, if God sends me a rabbi to share my message with, that's what I'll do. So I explained briefly my situation. And his immediate response was like, oh, well, that's, I'm sorry about your loss. And I said, no, I haven't lost anyone. I didn't say I'd lost anyone. It's like, well, I'm sorry about that, but we have to destroy this. We have to do. And he just started talking about, it just went straight to talking about aggression and war. but I just thought that's so far away from being, sharing the love of God. For those who believe in God, sharing the love of God. And I just, even that shocked me. That did shock me. And I do wonder, because, over the last 10 years that I've been at church, I've always declined going on any mission trips to the Holy Land. And they were like, well, it's something from your past, you have to forget about it and just move. Like, no, I'm sorry, I can't step foot where the people, from that country can't walk. I will not, my feet won't step in that land. I can't do that. I'm not going to be able to do that and feel that's okay. And it didn't matter how many times I tried to explain. I said, look, they drop white phosphorus on the children. They've poisoned the water supply before. They detain people. They kidnap people and they don't see their families again. It didn't matter what I said. They just couldn't hear it. They hear it now and they see it now and they all come to me and ask me, from my experience. But I feel that, people get somewhat of a Jerusalem syndrome. There's an actual phenomenon called Jerusalem syndrome, when people go to the Holy Land and they start feeling, that they are like somebody from a biblical character. They self-inflated ego, and people become hospitalized from it. And I wonder, just, literally because of where it is and because of the history, are people literally losing their mind a little bit? I don't know. Is it like people have gone to, they've done their return home and they're there and they feel like they're enacting something biblical or something, something from the Torah or something from, they're sort of manifesting something into as it should be. And they just can't see past that. I don't know. I do find it utterly bizarre. I mean, I'm from, like I said, I've got Jamaican heritage as well. We were slaves for hundreds and hundreds of years. There is still, there are genetic illnesses in my family due to, having to work the sugarcane and things like that. There are things that are in our history, but at no point do I want to go back to wherever we came from in Africa and drive out people that are now living in the area that my ancestors are from. I really don't understand it. Sorry.
I want to say something real quick, and then Roland
Well,
Dharma.
real quick, I do want to pose I want to just pose a quick question to the group, if you don't mind. And that is, with what's coming up next, whether the Netanyahu government decides they're going to move into Rafah or they're going to hold off. I want to hear what people think, and then what the repercussions would be if they did in fact go in and maybe unalive another 10 or 15 or 20,000 people. Towards the end, they're saying they're going after the remaining battalions of the H group. So if you want to finish your thought real quick, and then we'll go into that topic.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Elo for sharing that about the rabbi. And I also experienced something like that. I had posted something on my Instagram, a picture of like literally a dead baby. I never in my life have I seen so many dead babies on my feed. And then I had posted it, I had shared it on my story because I am outraged, and my rabbi commented on it, and he, of all the words that exist in the English language, he could have said anything. He could have maybe started off with saying, that's terrible that babies are dying. But he said to me, they're using them as human shields. And it's like, one of the most devastating things that I realized through this situation, and Chip knows this because last time I was on Chip's Live, I was like crying like a baby. But one of the most devastating things that I have learned is that I have put way too much trust in spiritual and religious leaders. And these rabbis, just like Christian, priests and Catholic priests and every religion out there, they are just humans. And if you're a human, you have the ability to be brainwashed and propagandized. And if you're human, you have the ability to be corrupted. Your heart has the ability to be corrupted. And I don't understand how people don't understand that. Just because you're a rabbi and you've been reading the holy book for 100 years, you still can be corrupted.
Absolutely, you're so right, Alyssa. It's true. Each person.
Let's let Danny get a chance to come in, then we'll come back around the horn. Okay, Danny hasn't been here yet. Hey, Danny, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great, man. Thanks a lot. Just to add to that, actually, what's going on with the protests, everything is twisted in the news.
Yeah.
So they twist everything. It's really bad. Like when you listen to the news right now, you're like most people will be totally confused or believe the wrong thing. Because how are they saying the students are dumb and how are they saying the students don't know anything? It makes no sense at all. So they continue on with things that don't make sense, illogical things like, oh, all you have to do is separate yourself from the H group, which is their government. It's like, how do you? That's impossible. Oh, all we need to do is just give us our hostages back. There are no hostages. Like, what if there are no hostages? What are you waiting for to come back? Everything is so twisted right now. It's just lies, and they just can double down and triple down on the lies. And they're very slow and like unintelligent people, clearly, because they're all brainwashed. But they are patriotic, so you give them a little bit of credit for that. But there's a point where like everyone knows the difference between right and wrong, but the media is really screwing everything up.
Well, I'd like to tie in those two things together. Sorry, Chip, I was just putting myself ahead in the
Yeah.
lineup.
Go
But
ahead, please. Go ahead.
the what we were talking about
Hello, everyone.
with hello with the mentality in Israel, the kind of messianic, apocalyptic mindset, and the chosen one mindset, and then to the protests, I sit in and listen on the Zios lives, and I can hear them saying, "It's just reprehensible what's being said. They're chanting death to America and death to Jews," and that seems so utterly absurd to me that they believe that the pro-Palestinian these kids in Colombia are actually chanting that. It seems like they're just so wildly traumatized and in fear, this generational collective trauma, that they actually believe that groups of tens of thousands of young people and people that are supporting Palestine are chanting, you know, horrible things like what they're saying. It just seems like they're projecting their fear out there and believing what they're saying. So that's all I want to say on that.
Do you know, I did read somewhere, I don't know if it was on TikTok, or if it was, I don't know now, and I'd have to look up more information about it. I don't know if it's exactly correct, but if anybody does know, please tell me. I read somewhere that in certain schools of thought in Judaism, because of a situation that happened with I think with Joseph and his brothers and his dad, the truth was concealed to save his dad's heart and feelings. And so there is a school of thought that to keep peace, it's okay to lie in certain circumstances. And so I'm wondering whether that is why we're seeing so many outright lies from Israel, because there's been many. I'm not saying it's constant. I'm just saying there've been a lot of blatant lies, but then politicians do lie anyway. But I'm going to go and wait and look more into that. But I think that there are some clear untruths that have been told, and I think it might be them following a certain line in war, that it's okay to do that in the case of war. But I don't know if it's definite or not. It's just something that I came across.
For any of those who are curious to learn more about this, you want a quick and easy way to do so. Avi Martin, who's amazing, has a YouTube channel called Empire Files. And it's such an easy resource. She's got video after video. She's the one who produced the Gaza Fights for Freedom documentary. So she's excellent. She knows the story inside and out. She goes and advocates for it on different TV programs. She's a very bright, very hardworking, very committed independent journalist. Has all my respect. Okay, let's let Abu Ammar on Marco. How you doing, Abu?
Hello, how are you doing?
Good,
I
thanks. How are
just
you?
want to make a quick comment on what Ella said. So the thing is that it is amazing how all these anti-Semitic myths are repeating themselves. So killing children, which was a typical anti-Semitic myth, the lion things, Talmud, all the things that Germany, Nazis used for this anti-Semitic propaganda is coming back again. And probably because they are working, not because this is some kind of sanity, but the thing is that these propaganda tricks are working from generation to generation. That's my point. So all these things about killing children and lying in Talmud and superiority things, that was you can find in Goebbels propaganda, you can find in Russian propaganda, you can find it everywhere. It repeats time by time.
Yeah, good points. It exists in every society to some extent. I would argue that the Israelis take it to a level that's pretty impressive. The Americans are good, but I think they take the gold medal for propaganda. So let's talk about that. You brought up the protesters. I think you raised a good point about people perceiving that they're uneducated. Danny said that. I heard that 3 times today on pro-Israeli Lives, that the protesters are, quote, clueless, uneducated, morons that have no idea what they're talking about. And then I asked them, I actually made a video about this today. And I said, I don't think people are stupid. Video doesn't lie. And when people see videos of children being crushed and unalived and body parts and women and men that had nothing to do with anything being marched around, twist-tied, run over by a bulldozer, shot by a sniper, fill in the blank, it's hard not to get an emotional reaction. And when you see that repeated over and over, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, it's just like a horror show. You can't believe, you're aghast. And no one would get support for that. I mean, what do they expect?
Even my favorite people to watch on Fox News, like the Greg Gutfeld show, Dan Bongino, they're all saying crazy things now. When I used to listen to them a lot, even Judge Janine, like what she was saying, like it's crazy, it's ridiculous, and people are gonna believe them.
Well, what are they saying that you think is crazy? Tell us that.
Like the exact same thing what we were talking about, that the students are dumb, that these students are particularly something, they're uneducated, stuff like that, like stuff that doesn't even make any sense, because it's happening all over the world. So you're calling all these educated students idiots? Like, they know what's going on. You can't pull the veil over them. And so the media's like, I can't watch them anymore. They just discredit themselves. And anytime CNN and Fox News agree on something, you know that there's something wrong. You know that they're lying.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I wonder if people who are pro-Israel or pro-Zionist, and of course nothing is everybody, but I've noticed a common trait, and that is, in terms of the ability to separate oneself from a point of view, they seem to really struggle to see anything other than the point of view that they think is right. So what I try to do when I'm speaking with them is to say, hey, I understand and identify with the things that you're saying. I can see why you would think that. The narrative that you embrace is one thing, but I also have the ability to look at it from another side because I'm an outsider. I don't know anybody in Israel. I don't know anybody who's Palestinian. I live in America. We get a lot of propaganda about this conflict, have for decades, but I've been able to learn more about it. But they think that I'm automatically biased against them simply because I take the tact of trying to look at it from an objective point of view. They think automatically objectivity means anti-Israel. And that's just not true. In fact, if the Israeli military and government behaved differently, I would commend them for behaving better. There's just their behavior, in my opinion, is worthy of condemnation because of its impact, the negative impact that it has. Not that the Palestinians are perfect, and not that I don't understand their desire for security and responding to what happened on 10/7, but within the broader scheme of things, the Zionist movement and the Israeli government and military have caused way more harm, way more disruption, way more chaos than any group of Arabs or Palestinians would ever hope to do times 100.
May I? Oh,
I would not agree with that, because if you take, for instance, 9/11 America, how many Americans were killed? 2,500?
2,997.
Yeah. And how many Arabs killed America? 500,000? What was rate civilians to terrorists in Mosul? 1 to 5? If Israel would act like Americans, there would be no Palestinians left.
Well, yeah, I know the bombardment of Iraq in Baghdad and elsewhere was, exceptionally horrible. And I think Mosul was a different example because it was like a last stronghold, and they decided they were going to absolutely go in there and do the horrible thing. That wasn't indicative of the whole war. But I will say this: the number of civilian casualties and much what America does in terms of its military and foreign choices is indefensible. There's no doubt about it. It's just that the Americans do a very good job of hiding their dirty work, as did Israel for a long time. But the social media has now opened up the world to things they would have otherwise never seen. And like the adage goes, seeing is believing.
It is difficult to hide anything now. Everyone knows that Russian bombed Aleppo to dust. Everyone knows that Saudians starved 500,000 Yemenis to death.
Yeah, Abu,
That's not a problem. So everyone knows that.
I
The
think you
thing
have
is
to
that
bear in,
you have tunnel vision, so you pick up things that suits your understanding.
I think what we have to bear in mind is the scale, the timing, the metric of it, how much damage Israel has done in a short amount of time compared to, yes, we can blame America for the casualties throughout the Middle East over 20 plus year period. But when you scale that to what Israel has done, we're talking about serious war crimes here.
Okay, let's make these comparisons. If you take this 2,500 to population of America, so the things what on October 7th, if 50 times more, should then Israelis kill 50 times more than Americans?
Should they? No. I mean, both of them were radical reactions.
Compared to war that America.
I don't think that's a fair thing. I want to say why I disagree with that point. I mean, it's an argument you can make, but the way in which the Americans have prosecuted their wars overseas are different. Hold on, just one sec. So we have apples and oranges. So you have a very densely populated urban area where there's a very brief period of time with a massive response to a very small, although relatively horrible, infliction of harm on another country who's much more militarily equipped than the people that are on the receiving end. And then you have mass bombardment of very, very tightly packed areas where hundreds of journalists have been unalive, which is unprecedented. The ratio of children to total casualties is unprecedented.
Aid workers.
You have people that were told to relocate that were then subsequently bombed. You have a number of things that indicate intent to unalive or at best have callous disregard for the lives of Palestinians.
Yeah, and those numbers were much less than Americans did in Mosul.
No, not true.
Yes,
but you're missing.
In
you're
the
missing
timing
the point.
that it happened.
Hold on, one sec, guys, 1 sec. Listen, you're using Mosul as an example. That was sort of like the last hurrah of the Iraq War, where they decided to deploy all their firepower on a remaining stronghold. Different circumstances, not the same as this conflict. You can't use those numbers and say it's apples and apples.
Why?
Because
the same thing was done in
it's
Hiroshima.
not the same circumstance. It's not the same circumstance.
So what do you mean it's not the same circumstance? You have
because
million militants that Iran is financing, that's shooting from Syria, from Lebanon, it is not the small country and small Palestinian people who are working against Israel. You know what? Who benefited from 7th of October? It's not Israel, not Palestinians. There were Russians who benefited from that.
No,
and
Iran
7th of October is Putin's birthday. So there are huge forces involved in this. conflict.
How did it benefit? How did it benefit Putin and Russia? Can you explain that, please?
He said it was it was his,
All attention was
he
distracted
make
from
no sense,
Ukrainian-Russian war. All the wars supplements were distracted from Ukrainian wars. Putin.
Why did you bring up
Putin
his
fight.
birthday?
If you look at these Telegram channels of pro-Russian, they published those videos how Hamas unalived Israelis. They were celebrating it. They were dancing.
How come we haven't seen those?
This is Hamas.
How come we haven't seen those videos?
What?
How come no one else has seen those videos?
What do you mean? Million people have seen those videos.
I just
You
want
just
to
cannot look. You cannot search in Telegram.
Abu, just real quick, as a
No, it's
Russian,
all
I
bullshit.
just want to say, I
Hold on.
lived in 3 different countries, and I kind of understand what you're saying in terms of like, I feel you have like a bit of an anti-Western, look on this perspective, and I say that with respect because I get it. Like I grew up with a bunch of Russians from older generations than me, so I understand. But what I'm trying to say is that I really don't think that Russia has such great power to orchestrate this whole situation when there's not only Israel, it's also America. America has great power in this too because Israel is our ally. You see what I'm saying?
Russians educated, trained Hamas. Hamas is constant visitor to Russian government.
Yeah,
Russians
and
are
who
covering
trained
it
the
together with Iran,
Hold on.
which
Hold on.
trained the
Slow
IRA?
down. Slow down. Now, listen. If you guys are going to make claims, you have to back it up with something. Now, the Palestinian Authority has a relationship with the Russian government. The Russian government has expressed solidarity and support for the Palestinian struggle. They do not have a direct relationship, nor do they support Hamas because Putin refuses to support any organization that uses tactics that are considered terroristic. So you got to get your facts straight.
correct. Check how many times Hamas delegation was in Moscow and when they was in Moscow.
Can I change the topic, please? Because I have to go soon, and I just want to comment on something Chip said. I would like to request to change the topic.
Yeah, go ahead. We can come back to that in a minute. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I just quickly want to say, and then I think I'm just going to drop off because I actually have to finish up my day. But I just want to comment on what you said, Chip, about Zionism and being able to separate it from yourself. I really love that you said that because I actually had experience last night with my cousin who is a Zionist, and I don't say that in a way to criticize him, but he literally says to me, "I am a Zionist." He has proclaimed that to me, and last night we were having a debate over text, and it was more respectful than the other debates that I had with him. But one thing that he did say, and I kind of feel like I got to him a little bit. He finally was vulnerable with me, and he said, "Elisa, I feel that you're criticizing me when you're saying that I'm a Zionist because Zionism is part of my identity." And that is the key, I think, and that's how sneaky and tricky this ideology is. They were very clever about this. They made Zionism a part of your identity. And if you know anything about psychology, identity is very important for a human being. It's very important. Tribalism is very important for human beings. We are tribal animals. We are like elephants. We roam in flocks. So it is just a very clever way of influencing people. Zionism supporting, what is Zionism? Zionism means, according to my Zionist cousin, means that you support the state of Israel. You support its existence, right? So basically what it means is that as a Jewish person, or as a Zionist, if you don't support the state of Israel, then you're anti-Israel, right? So if you turn around, that basically is saying like, we can do whatever we want because you have to support us unequivocally. You have to believe in us regardless because you just have to support the concept of Israel's existence. Does that make sense? I feel I'm kind of rambling.
Okay, Alice, are you Jewish?
Actually, it makes perfect sense because on that note, media falls into the same.
You are Jewish. What holiday did you
say
have
anything
right now?
wrong,
Let's let somebody else talk for a sec.
if they don't follow the narrative, they lose their jobs. So it goes back to the money. Go ahead, Israeli guy.
Yeah, Abu, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I have to go now, so I just wanted to say bye, y'all.
Yeah, but
Okay.
It was nice speaking to
it's
you,
very,
Lisa.
it's very important. So
Okay, go ahead.
See you
the
later.
holiday that you had now was Zionist holiday. It
Zionist
was,
holiday? What do you mean?
yeah, it was Exodus, you know, going from Egypt to Eretz Israel to make the genocide. So the whole Jewish religion, Jewish people were built on Mount Zion. So
On what?
on Mount Zion, yes,
Mount
Jewish
Zion.
people.
He's saying Zion.
Mount Zion.
There is
Oh,
you cannot separate Zionism from Jewish religion. If you're Jewish, then you're Zionist. There
That's
is
not
no
true.
difference.
That is not
It's
true.
absolutely
but
true.
That is
Abu,
not
no,
true.
no, let me
You
say,
can
let me
relate
say,
to a
yes.
couple of
No, I
freaks.
understand what you're saying.
Not
Yes.
true.
No.
Yes, it is absolutely
Not
true.
true.
The
Not
first
true.
Zionist was
Abu.
Moshe Rabbeinu.
Well,
No,
just like
No.
every other religion, they use it
The
to
first
control their
Zionists
people. They use
took
it to control their
people
people.
from Egypt and went to Promised Land and did genocide on the people of Palestine or whatever you call it. So Judaism is Zionism.
Yeah,
Abu,
Nope.
let me just say
It's
in
this.
the
not.
Can I just say
Bible as
something?
Yes, prove me
It's
that
not.
I'm wrong.
It's
Okay,
not.
I want to prove you wrong. Let me say something. Abu, I
Yeah.
actually understand. I understand what you're saying, but you're saying that you have to be a Zionist. You have to be Jewish in order to be a Zionist, right? Is that what you're saying?
No, he's saying
Not only
if
because
if you're
Islam,
Jewish.
You're saying that all Jewish
and
people are Zionists.
Christianity are
You're
built
saying
on
that
the
all Jewish
same
people are
ground.
Zionists,
They
right?
all are Zionists. You
Okay,
take
but
Quran,
what's
that's all
interesting?
Zionism.
Well, you know what? That's what we used to think. That's true because that's exactly what the Jewish community or Zionism has been teaching the Jewish community. I think Zionism has targeted the Jewish community and taken it hostage. And
Yeah, so,
the
and what about
majority of
Moshe
them go to
Rabbeinu,
believe
which
in
went from
terrorism.
Egypt to take Israel
So
to Promised Land?
yes, but Abu, what you're missing link here is that what's interesting about this situation is that you are seeing that you can actually be a Zionist and not be Jewish, like Joe Biden. And you can also be Jewish and
That's
not a Zionist.
because
Because a lot of Jewish people
Bible,
have come out and said that
Christianity and
they are not
Islam are built
Zionists.
on the top of
And
Jewish religion.
some Jewish people, Hasidic Jewish people that have been Jews
Christianity and
for
Islam are built on
centuries,
top of religion. If
they
you
are
take
standing outside marching on.
Chip, you're muted.
We need to have some sort of. I can't hear either of you talking, so we can't talk over each other. So I'm going to give Elisa 30 seconds to a minute. We'll have you pause, then we'll go to Abu, then we'll go to Federico, and then I am. Okay, go ahead, Elisa.
Okay, sorry for getting a little passionate there, but listen, I just want to say what's interesting about this situation is that I understand what Abu is saying. Okay, all Jewish people are Zionists because that's kind of like the old pre-2023 way of thinking. Because that's what I thought too. I thought you had to be a Zionist in order to be Jewish. So. But what's good about this situation is that it's coming out that you actually don't have to be Jewish in order to be a Zionist because Joe Biden has proclaimed himself Zionist and vice versa. You don't have to be a Zionist. You can be Jewish and not be a Zionist because there's a bunch of Hasidic Jews marching on the streets with signs and they're saying Judaism, yes, Israel, no, Zionism has got to go. So this situation has proved to all of us that you can be both things. And I think the issue here is that people have a hard time being in the gray zone. You can be both, okay? And yeah, I gotta go now, guys. I'm so sorry,
Okay.
but it's been really fun debating with you. But Abu, I understand what you're saying, but I think you need to think a little bit more openly. You got to open your mind a little bit because there's many ways of being human in this world. There's not only one way, man. So you got to think about that. There are many, many different types of people out there, and I think it's all of our responsibility to get to know them instead of just making up stuff. Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead, Abu.
Can I just say I'm going to drop as well. Elisa, it was lovely to speak with you. Chip, thank you so much for giving me the
Sure.
opportunity to speak.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
back
you.
on TikTok.
All right. See you
And
soon.
take care, everybody.
Bye,
All right, see
guys.
you later.
Thanks
Thanks
so
for being
much.
here. Thanks for being here, everybody. Okay, Abu, your turn, please.
Actually, it was my discussion with her. He was Jewish. She didn't know what Judaism is about. So Judaism is about Zionism, because the first Zionist was Moshe, that took people from Egypt and went to Israel, to Promised Land. That was the first Zionist.
What does
And
the Torah say?
Torah says that it's Promised Land from the river to the river, not from the river to the sea, from the river to
Does
the
the
river.
Torah say
That
establish a nation state? Does the Torah say establish a nation state instead of
yes,
coming
Torah
as their
says
Messiah?
not only establishing a nation state. Torah says, and not only Torah, all the Christian books, all the Islam books, Quran is built on top of Torah, and Christian books say that's why you have Christian Zionists, and that's why you have Islam Zionists. If you take Saudi, which are our cousins, not the other people, but if you take Saudi, they will absolutely acknowledge that this land belongs to Jews. That's stated in Quran. That's stated in Bible, because they are completely
Okay,
built on the
let's.
Torah basis.
Okay, so let me share one point, and then I'm going to let one of either Federico or I am come in and give their views. So here's what I won't put it in my words. I'll
One
put it in
second.
words of other scholars. Hold on one second. Let me just say this, and then we're going to let you reply, or we'll let the other guys jump in. So this is what I've heard people say, and maybe you disagree with this point. I'll leave it about not about me, about others. So what others have said is that Zionism is a contrivance of an atheist political thought process that has a designation on establishing a Jewish ethno-state or homeland in historic Palestine. And it has used the connection to Judaism to cloak itself in a wrapped identity with the religion, whereas it was primarily a settler colonial endeavor and continues to be so to this day. Now, what's wrong about that?
Basically everything, starting with colonialists.
Okay.
And the colonial project was Palestine. That was colonial project, British project. The Palestinian flag is designed by a British officer. It was never separated from Syria in 900 years. Name Palestine was not used from Mamluks to Turkeys. So that was completely British project. They redesigned the whole area. So the name Palestine was British name, which they took back. They designed the flag. They designed the whole story. So
where can we read some information to verify the things you're saying, Abu? Because the information you're sharing is vastly different than what I've read in my lifetime.
I don't know what you read, but I can just read the history of conquest. I read how this land was
let me repeat.
900 years.
Let me repeat the question. Okay, the history as you're sharing it is vastly different than everything I've read in my entire life, and I've read a lot. What are the sources that back up the information so I can
Okay,
look
just
at them?
Google Palestine flag. That was actually flag of state Hijaz that Brits want to create. Google for Spike. His British officer was named Spikes or Spike that designed this flag.
So Philistine is
Do you
not.
want to Google how this area was called by Turks, Mamluks? Google it. It's 900 was not used.
Chip, I can't take
Well,
this
say what?
anymore. I swear.
Here's what I'm going to do, Abu. I'm going to give you. Listen, this is what I give people the opportunity to do for me. If you want to, you don't have to. I'm somebody who's very open to looking up and reading information. So since what you're sharing is so vastly different, rather than telling me what to go look for, if you want to send me some links after you do the Googling, I'm not going to go chasing after things that you think.
There is. I'll send you.
Yeah, here's what I'm going to give you my email address. Okay, it's also in my bio. It's just my name, Chip Barnes, and the word online @gmail.com. So I'll welcome anything you send me. I'll bring it up, I'll read it, and then I'll bring it up on another live. We can discuss it. But for right now, I want to give a couple other people a chance to weigh in. So I am Palestinian, and then Federico. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thing I want to debunk. Sorry, guys, I jumped. First of all, your name is Abu Ammar. Okay, that's very Islamic / Arabic name. Yet you have the thickest accent. I mean, Russian accent, Polish accent I've ever heard. Right. So that's one propaganda. Typical Zionist. Try to come in undercover and try to brainwash us. One thing. The other thing is that the word Palestine is mentioned in Genesis. Okay, how old is Genesis? 3,000 years. So for you to come here and tell us that the British, they invented the name of Palestine, that's absurd. That's beyond even imagination. The other thing is that Zionism created by that guy, right? Zionism did not exist before. And you're saying that Moses, when he took his people from Egypt and they came to that land, he created. No, to be honest with you, Jewish people used to be there, that in that area before Moses. You can read all that. So everything what you say is 100% wrong. And we are here respectfully giving you opportunity to correct yourself. Yet you keep repeating the same thing. It's typical Zionist propaganda. I'm pretty sure you're a settler. I'm pretty sure that you came from Russia, and then they gave you a house which was probably originally belonged to Palestinians. And that's the reason why you come here and defend your nonsense.
Can I answer this? I don't know.
He didn't ask you a question.
That's okay. Let him. You can answer, Abu. You can go ahead and answer.
Can I answer this?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
With bated breath.
Chip, can I
Yes,
answer
go
this?
ahead.
Yes.
Okay, so as you probably understand, do you know who Abu Ammar was?
I thought it was you. That's your name, right?
Yasser
Arafat. Yasser Arafat.
Yasser Arafat. Great. That was Federico which answered, not Free Palestine people. The answer. The question was to this specialized in Palestine. So he didn't know who Abu Ammar was. So that's first. Second, the name Palestine, as you all know, Arabic language has no even P in. You cannot say Palestine. You can say Palestine.
Stop it.
No, I'm not stopping it. So Palestine was Greek name used by Herodot.
That shows your ignorance.
And it was used after Bar Kokhba revolt.
Hey, real quick, guys. I don't know if you can hear me. Let's not make silly comments like that. The letter P is not in the alphabet because it's called Palestine with an F. Other people use a different term to describe it. So that's just a silly thing to say. Let's not be silly. All right.
That has nothing to do with Zionism. Just the name of the mountain.
Oh, he's back.
Yeah, he dropped accidentally. It wasn't on purpose.
Okay, Abu Ammar,
But
I have a question. You caught my
Go ahead.
Federico, hit him.
Yeah, he made a statement.
Enough now. Now we have Zionists calling themselves Abu and wants to teach us history. Chip, can you believe that?
You would probably learn something if you listen.
Abu Drat, hold on 1 second.
Okay, so
you said
the thing is, if you just Google who invented the name, how it was called during the whole history, you can find out very simple that It was
Absolutely.
called then Romans called it Provincia Iudea. After
Yeah,
that,
we're not here to talk
after
history.
that,
Anyway,
it
we're done
was
with
renamed
history.
to Provincia
Budrat,
Palestine.
we're done with history. We're not gonna stay here talk history. But
Okay,
you,
then
yeah,
then
caught my
bottom
attention.
line.
Hey,
You
can you
caught
let
my
Federico talk, please?
yeah, he got my attention when he said the promised land, not from the river to the sea, but from the river to the river. What river to what
That's
river?
what Torah says and
Yeah,
Quran
but
says.
what river and what river? Can you tell me what river to what river?
Of course, I can tell you
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
from Nilus to Euphrates.
So from the Nile of Egypt to the
Yeah.
Euphrates of Iraq.
To Euphrates, that's in Torah, that's in Quran,
Yeah,
that's in
so
Bible.
no. I never seen it in Quran. I've read the Quran, but I've never seen it. If you have a verse
Yeah,
to
but
refer
you
me to,
look for it, then you find it.
no, I mean, my question was, so your promised land, it's not only Palestine, that
No, it's
includes.
much more. It's 10 times more. And if you take any Bible and open like
So
map
your
of Jewish
intention,
tribes,
is to conquer the land from the Nile of Egypt all the
no,
way
it
to
is
the
not
Furat,
our intention. Absolutely, I'm telling you
but
what
that's
is
the
written
promised
in
land.
Torah, Bible, and Quran.
So why
That's
you
my
focus?
intention.
Why
To
you focus
educate
on
you.
Palestine then? Why you focus on
My intention
Palestine?
is to educate you
Exactly, I'm
about
trying to
what is
educate.
written in
I'm
Torah,
getting
Quran, and Bible.
Abu Drat. I'm trying to get educated by you. Okay, that's what I'm trying to do. So if the from the Nile of Egypt to the Furat of Iraq, why is it you focus on Palestine?
What I mean, focus on Palestine.
Like, why did you decide to start taking Palestine instead of going first start from Egypt? Like, why didn't you start in Cairo, where the Nile starts? Like, start from the land, from the first border to the end of the other border. You started right in the middle. Why is that?
Why put together Bible and history facts? What
It's
are you
because of
trying to do?
it's because of the
Never
connection to Africa and the
heard
diamond.
that
That's why.
it is.
That's why they went
I
to
just
Palestine.
explained why Islam
No,
people
because
and Christian people and Jewish people
that
are
includes
all
my country.
Zionists.
Yeah, that includes my country. So you're telling me that after you're done with Palestine, you're gonna come after me, after Lebanese,
No,
and
I'm
after
not
we're done.
telling you
Well,
that.
that's
I'm
what you
telling
said.
you,
That's
no,
what you said by the
no,
theory. The
that's
theory
what
you
you
made.
said.
No, that's
Don't
the
give
theory
me
you
your
made from
words.
the Nile to the
No,
Furat. And you
exactly.
guys,
That's what
yeah.
is written in Torah. That's what is written in Quran. That's what is written in Bible. So, but I'm not saying that we will come and go Lebanon or whatever country
But you
you
tried to invade
name.
Lebanon. You did, didn't you, in 1982?
This is strange conversation. Let's
No,
pick
no, no.
up the
It's
topic.
fact.
My point was just
1982.
educate people what is written in Torah and why different religions are
Abu Drat.
Zionist.
Hold on, real
Drat.
quick. Oh, guys, real quick. So, Abu, I need to ask you this question. What is the purpose? Let's just assume right now everyone agrees with you. What is the point of you trying to share what you're sharing? Are you saying that the Israeli government and the Zionist movement have a legitimate claim to the territory from the river in Egypt to the river in Iraq and all the territory in between, a part of the Greater Israel Project, and you support those gains? Or what? Where are you with the issues? Do you support Israel? Do you not support Israel?
He thinks
Chip, that was what you said. If you just listen what I'm telling you. So Alice, or I don't remember her name, was speaking and she told, okay, there are Christian Zionists and there are Islam Zionists. And I just explained why there are Christian Zionists and Islam Zionists. Because all of those religions are based on Torah, and Torah says from the river to the river, it's promised land. So
There is no Muslim Zionist.
you cannot wipe it from Bible, you cannot wipe
Hold
it.
on, Abu,
So
Abu.
that was explanation why Christians and
Hold on. No, you said the promised land. My question is for whom? For everybody to share equally? For the Jewish people? For the Muslims? For the Christians? Who you said it's promised to whom?
pick up the point of view. So I just explained why different religious group are Zionists. because that's
There
is
is no
written
Muslim
in.
Zionist.
Just real quick. I just asked you a very specific question, and you're not even answering it, or you're not even pretending I asked it. You said that the Torah claims that the Promised Land is from the Nile River to the Euphrates, and I've seen the other territory, all of Lebanon, all of Jordan, half of Iraq, a lot of Saudi Arabia, the whole nine. It's a big, big, big territory. You say it's the Promised Land. I'm saying promised to whom? Answer
To
that first, then we'll talk more.
people, to 10 Jewish tribes.
So you're saying to Jewish people?
Yes.
Okay, so you support Israel then, right?
Can you concentrate on one question? I explain.
I guess
It's
let's
just a
cover
simple
that
question.
first. You're saying you support Israel then, correct? Yes or no? It's a very simple question.
Obviously, Chip. Obviously, he does.
I absolutely support Israel.
Okay, so here's a fair question. Given the modern dynamics of life, meaning that other people had lived places since those old texts were written that people say they believe in, can I come to your house right now, wherever you may be, with my old piece of written paper from somebody and say, hey, Abu, my piece of paper says this, I believe it, therefore you have to leave your home because my God says it's promised to me. What would you say to me if I came and said that to you?
I would say to you, this is completely forbid the things that I said. I answered a completely different question. I answered the question why different religious group are Zionists, because that's written in their
But answer
basis.
his question. But answer his question.
Now, if you want to ask another question, if Jews now have right to all this territory from Euphrates to Nile, is that your question? Today,
What I want to know is why is it that people from Europe and elsewhere, I guess the so-called Ashkenazi Jewish people, feel that they have the right to return to a region, obviously for which they have no genetic connection or lineage, to take land that was promised to them at a 3,000-year point ago by a book they believe in, when people who lived there before then had nothing to do with the writing of that book, and they're people that conquered the land before that book was written. They're people that have conquered that land after that book was written. And why do we pick that one arbitrary place and time in that particular book to define what should happen with the land?
first you have said a lot of different claims. It will take us a month to discuss all
We
those.
don't have a month.
So
but-
you can pick up one of.
But just real quickly, so I'm going to ask a very simple question. Do you support somebody taking someone else's home because they feel they're entitled to it? Yes or no? A simple question. Yes or no? I just want a yes or no answer on that. Do you think it's justifiable to take someone else's home because someone feels they have a historical claim to that land? Yes or no?
No,
No.
of course not.
Okay, that's a very
No
fair
question about it.
That's the first thing we've agreed upon today. So the question then comes in is if indeed this territory is delineated in these books, the Torah, the Old Testament, whatever you want to call it, and yet we have the modern political dynamics that are in place based on who has lived where for multiple generations in relative peace, why is it all of a sudden okay for one group to establish something that dispossesses the other of their land at the end of a gun?
Because you need to understand who lived there and who owned this land and why it was happened. So the other claims that you have, that Jews came and took over the homes of poor Palestinians, this is false.
Okay. So when Elian Pape wrote his book called The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, he lied about every single thing that happened in 1948. Is that correct?
Not everything. He just put together some facts which Elian Pape and 10 other freaks which are trying to be anti-Zionist, anti-Israel. You can find those collaborators, you can find in America a lot of anti-American people. There are 11 people or 10 people, Jews, which are fighting against Israel, which are fighting against their religion. And they, of course, Elian Pape is not a historian. He is combining together facts which are not true. I mean, he picks up the right facts, but he leaves aside another fact. He makes his own history.
What's his motivation for lying if he's not being accurate? What motivates him?
Probably some psychological problems that he had when he was child, like Finkelstein or some other people. There are 10 strange people that you are all. It's actually funny that you don't have your own like historians. You need to use Jews to fight Jews. That's funny
Well,
thing, you know.
I'm not. Listen, I didn't wake up one day and say, "Hey,
It's
can I give
I'm
you money to
flattered
write a
that
book?" And I'm not using it.
I'm flattered that all your sources are Jewish sources, but you know there are crazy Jews also.
So let me get this straight. So if somebody has a different view of how one group interprets the events of history versus another, they're by defact, in your terms, crazy because they're
No, that's ideological. Leon Pape was communist, and his father was communist. That's communist ideology that is completely different from, and all his life he built his career on being anti. Without being anti-Israeli, he doesn't worth anything. It's all his career that built on it. Like
okay. So he's
Finkelstein.
doing it. He's doing it for the money, right? Is that what you're saying?
Both ideology, communist ideology, money, and his position. Now he cannot go back.
Okay, so how about the renowned addiction expert Gabor Mate, who was barely saved when the Holocaust
The
almost.
same thing. You pick up the same 10%. Finkelstein, Gabor Mate. That's the same 10%. You
You have
have
a list, right?
couple of bunch of
A list of
crazy
traitors.
rabbis, real true rabbis, which are banned from any normal Jewish community. So you have
What if they're
11
telling
people
the
that
truth?
you wait.
That's why they're banned, because they're telling the truth.
That
Can I
Jews
put in
always
my bit
invented.
before I forget?
Jews
Go ahead,
has
TLX.
always invented Marxism, Christianity,
Abu
Islam,
Ammar,
all these things.
listen, Abu Ammar. You were correct earlier. There is Christian Zionists and there is Muslim Zionists. Basically, it comes down to this. If you know and respect the 10 Commandments, then you're a true Jewish person. And even if you're Christian or Muslims, your ancestors are still following the 10 Commandments that any Jewish person should follow. You're technically from the tribe. And if you don't respect those 10 Commandments and you're just to pretend and you're using them for your own purpose whenever they're convenient, then you have no respect for even the sender of the 10 Commandments. You're not really respecting the religion and the creator. That's why most of you claim that you're secular, which all makes sense. So yeah, that explains why there's Muslim and Christian Zionists.
I also
That's
agree.
what my point. I explained why Christians and Muslims are Zionists, because it's written in the base of their book, like Jews.
And you're all brainwashed. That's right. You're all brainwashed.
Exactly as you are brainwashed. Everybody is brainwashed. Then people
Zionism doesn't
started.
respect the 10 Commandments
You're the one who's
that are in the Torah. Zionism has no regard for the 10 Commandments. It breaks them in each and every way.
Let's go back to your statements that who lived in this area, who had the home. Let's take this one.
Listen, nobody's disputing that Jewish people were there. Because
Let's take Chip. Chip has told me right now that Jews told me this narrative. So Arabs are trying to steal Jewish narratives all the time. So Chip told me this narrative that exactly from religion, all the prophets, all the lands, all the names. Now it's probably they've stolen this small people narrative which attacked from all the sides. That's what they're doing all the time.
Can I jump in, please?
It's not a
So
narrative.
let's go back to Chip's.
Chip, I'm dying.
Chip told me that
Finish up, Abu.
so the Jews came and took houses of Arabs. Do you mean Nakba? Yeah.
Chip, can you give me 30 seconds, please?
Yeah, Abu,
okay.
let's let I Am Palestinian come in. He hasn't talked in a while. Go ahead.
Okay, this guy is claiming and telling everybody that everybody's fake, yet he's here with a Russian accent with Abu Omar name, and and then telling everybody that they're being brainwashed. Okay, one thing.
You didn't
The
know
other
who
thing,
Abu
I
Omar
just
was.
posted something,
Hold
so
on.
read this. Genesis 2134, and Abraham stayed in the land of the Philistines for a long time. So you made a claim that the word Palestine or Palestine was invented by English people. Whatever you say that by.
Taken back. It was invented
But
by
can I,
Herodotus.
dude, stay quiet for some time. So now I just quoted from your own religious book that the name Palestine existed long before, even time of Abraham, the grandfather of your religion. Yet you're here to still telling me that that's not true. By the way, why are you using Yasser Arafat's name? I mean, you're Russian, right? Aren't you Russian?
No, I'm not Russian, no.
What are you then?
Pushkin.
What's that?
It doesn't matter what's. You're not Palestinian either, so you didn't know who Abu Omar is.
He's Mossad.
Yeah, he's Mossad. So now, and you live in Israel, right?
No, I'm not living in Israel. Not.
Do you have a house there?
No, I don't have a house there.
Are you Jew then?
So what?
I'm asking you. I mean, you're here to defend.
No,
something.
I mean, you asking me a lot of questions. You're making a lot
Well,
of
you're
statements
asking
which-
people a lot of questions.
No,
I'm
you're lying all the
asking you a
time. I
question.
told you that the name Palestine was author invented of Brits. They took it back after 900 years that it was never used. It was, Mamluks called it Syria. It was Syria the whole way.
Wait.
900 years. That's what I
You can
told.
claim
Abu, hold on, guys. Hold on.
Hold it.
We don't want to get into a shouting match over top of each other. Abu, I just be clear, okay? I just looked up Pushkin. It says it's a district of St. Petersburg, which is a large city in the north part of Russia. So do you live within the territorial integrity of the Russian Federation, yes or no?
Oh my God.
No.
Okay. Do you live in any other nation state in the world?
I'm living on Mars if you want.
Well, it'd be nice for you to tell us a little bit about where you're coming from so we understand what's going on. I live in the United States on the eastern seaboard. You're claiming that I am Palestinian isn't Palestinian. I'm assuming you don't know him, right?
No, I'm telling you, let's take question by question. You made some
Hold on.
10.
So let me tell you what my guess is, okay? You sound like you have a Russian accent. My guess is somewhere towards the eastern part of Russia. I'm sorry, the western part of Russia. If you're from Russia, or maybe you're from Lithuania, or maybe you're from eastern Ukraine, or I don't know where you're from, but that's what your dialect sounds like. And the reason why you don't want to tell us, I have no idea. But the bottom line is you're trying to make the argument that the book that somebody just literally read from doesn't refer to the word Palestine until the British in the modern era developed the word Palestine.
Not correct. This is not correct.
That's what you
the
said.
name, no, that's not what I said. That's what our Palestinian friend said. I told that Brits took it again after 900 years that it was not used for the name of this area. It was used name Syria. It's called Syria.
Did you ever hear the Roman Empire?
Excuse me?
Did you ever hear something called the Roman Empire?
Yes, Roman Empire conquered this place, and it was called Provincia Iudea. It was called Provincia Iudea. After Bar Kokhba, it was renamed to Provincia Palestine. It was existed in like 150 years until Mamluks took over.
All right, so I want to get the book. I want to go to Amazon.com. I'm going to search alternative history according to Zionist philosophy. Is that a book? That's
No. You just never read the history of this area. Do you know that Mamluks took over? How Mamluks called it? How Ottoman Empire called it? How did Ottoman Empire call the area?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Abu Omar.
Why does this matter?
It is matter. Brits took again this Roman old
land to those who
invention.
uphold his 10 commandments and respect them. You have to uphold the commandments and respect them. Then the land is yours. You don't just say, I was born there, so I don't have to respect anything.
I cannot simultaneously answer 50 persons. I was talking to Chip, which has no idea that this land before 1918 was called Syria in 900 years.
Which part of the land?
Does this matter?
It's included Jordan, and it's included British Mandate, included Jordan, which was separated in 21. For Brits wanted to do it like that, and
Can I respond? Because you're wrong.
What I'm wrong?
Well,
This British mandate.
It was called the Shamite. It wasn't called Syria. It was called the land of Shamite. That whole chunk.
It was called Syrian. It was
No.
then when the Christians came, they called it Terra Sancta. But then Turks take it back. They call it Syria again. So Brits just reinvented, took the old and took the old.
I'm going to fast forward. I don't want to hear the history of it anymore. Let's assume Abu's 100% correct. All this land is promised to the 10 tribes of the Jews. Okay. Here's my question, Abu. Does it justify murdering Palestinian children when they're standing in the middle of a road for no reason other than the fact that the Israeli military has the weaponry to do it? Is that justifiable to you?
Okay, and I just have another question for you. How about repeating?
You're not being talked to by 50 people, as you claimed a second ago. This is one person, me. I just asked you one simple question. Does what you're saying justify the murdering of innocent Palestinian children? Yes or no?
Of course not. But what?
Okay, then why is Israel doing that?
Israel is not doing that. Israel is not. Of course not. Israel is not doing that.
Hold on a second. They got to go. So listen, Aaron, let me explain this to you if you don't know this. Israel has been murdering Palestinians on the regular for 82 years. 82 years of regularly mass murdering Palestinians. At first in small numbers, and then over the last several decades in the tens of thousands. Now, yes, what happened on 10/7 was horrible, but for you to say the Israeli military doesn't indiscriminately kill Palestinian youth is absolutely absurd. This is part of the Zionist indoctrination where everything and anything is justifiable. This is the problem. They really believe what he just said. They believe that they're entitled to the land and that everything else is just an obstacle to their aspirations based on their understanding of history. That's a real problem.
Did you really run?
No, I got rid of them. I couldn't take it anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chip.
No, I just can't take that many people. Listen, if he's callously indifferent or he doesn't know the actual what's going on in the world, he's just not willing to learn what's going on. And that's an unfortunate thing. He may be right about everything with these old texts. I don't know all those details, quite frankly. I don't really give a shit. Because what I care about is the history since about 1850 to present of who was living on the land in the modern era. You can go back at any time in history and pick 4,700 years ago, 5,600 years ago. At what point does somebody have an arbitrarily claim to owning land? And why does your particular time in the past become the time in the past? Fair question, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, Chip, do you mind if I read something quickly?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick, go ahead and drop me, Chip. I'll request if I want to respond to someone.
Is that TLX?
Yes.
Okay, TLX. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
So this is from the Book of Mormon. I just wanted to show you an example of indoctrination and what that guy was talking about Christian Zionists and stuff like that. So just going to read this. Wherefore he will bring them out of captivity, and they shall be gathered together to the lands of their inheritance. And they shall be brought out of obscurity and out of darkness, and they shall know that the Lord is their Savior and their Redeemer, the Mighty One of Israel. And the blood of that great and abominable church, which is the whore of all the earth, shall turn upon their own heads, for they shall war amongst themselves, and the sword of their own hands shall fall upon their own heads, and they shall be drunken with their own blood. And every nation which shall war against thee, O house of Israel, shall be turned one against another, and they shall fall into the pit which they digged to ensnare the people of the Lord. And all that fight against Zion shall be destroyed, and that great whore who have perverted the right way of the Lord. And great and abominable church shall tumble to the dust, and great shall be the faith of it. Just one paragraph. For behold, saith the prophet,
the time cometh speedily that Satan shall have no more power over the hearts of the children of men, for the day soon cometh that all the proud and they who do wickedly shall be stumbled, and the day cometh that they must be burned. For the time soon cometh that the fullness of the wrath of God shall be poured out upon all the children of men, for he will not suffer that the wicked shall destroy the righteous. So he's saying that Israel is righteous. Wherefore he will preserve the righteous by his power, even if it so
How
be.
much longer, and how much longer, Danny?
Just like a couple more lines.
Just pretty quick. Thanks.
Okay. Righteous by his power, even if it so be that the fullness of his wrath must come, and the righteous be preserved, even until the destruction of their enemies by fire. Wherefore the righteous need not fear, for thus saith the prophet, they shall be saved, even if it's so by fire. So it keeps going on about how they, want to preserve Israel.
All right, 1 second, Chip. Guys, I saw you today, Chip, on this Zio's panel where you were trying to talk sense or understand a thing or two from and all they did is insults after insults. So you guys, please, Chip is being fought by a lot of Zionists on here. They promised him that they're gonna send him to jail right in front of me today.
Yeah.
So I ask that we have 200 people on here. I ask every one of you to support the live and support Chip Barn because he is doing an amazing job and he's taking a lot of heat for our cause. So please, everyone on here, please support Chip and his effort. Let him stand on his ground solid. The guy does not gain anything from us. He talks and he actually get a lot of lash back on. So please, everyone, support the live, support Chip. We really appreciate you.
How are they going to send you to jail, may I ask?
Some lady today was upset about my presence on the live and said that because of the things that I say that I'm going to get put in jail, something like that. She didn't give a reason, like a particular crime.
There's a lot.
Mind you, you guys, they already sent the FBI to his house. So the feds have visited Chip Barn already once.
So I don't think I've broken any laws, but I guess I've hurt some feelings. I know that.
Yeah.
Hi guys.
They came and talked to you, Chip?
No, the FBI. Someone reported me to the FBI. I never got contacted by them.
So basically, they're building up the dossier for you, right? They're building files for you. I mean,
I don't know what's going on. I just know that someone threatened to contact the FBI, and he's done it a couple times with people. They've actually had the complaints lodged at the FBI about people.
Hi guys.
And they misrepresent what you do or say. They try to make it sound like you made hateful threats or death threats or anti-Semitic statements, which of course I've never done.
Hi guys.
Oh, can I just say, hey, Chip, I'm so sorry you experienced that.
That's okay. No, I got thick skin. Kurdish Doctor, welcome. How would you like to welcome here?
Thank you so much. I just want to say, guys, there's no need to be afraid of the police or FBI or whoever contacting, because that's a standard process that they have to undertake when people make complaints. Those complaints are not based in fact. I mean, this happens in Britain. People, there was someone who was on LinkedIn, and all he had done is shared an article and made a few comments. All of a sudden, two Zionists, two extremists threatened him and said that they'll contact the police. They did so, and they accused him of terrorism. They had said that he would, sorry for using the word, they'd accused him of T-word, they'd accused him of all sorts of things, hate crimes, etc. He filmed the whole thing. The police came to him. They were very professional. They did their job and they left because there was nothing untoward. So basically, this is what happens when people are desperate, and what they do is they use the police. They use any force that they can. And this is what Karen, the word Karen comes from that, doesn't it? The Karens of this world. That's what they do to black men.
They call us Karens too, because somebody called me a Karen today.
It's fine. I mean, some people really have the name Karen, so I kind of feel sorry for them. But look, the fact is, people do this all the time. They threaten others by saying, I'm going to call the police, I'm going to contact so and so, and I'm going to do
Did
this.
you hear about the Spanish prime minister? What happened to him? He stood up for pro-Palestine, and then all of a sudden there were rumors about his wife having corruption claims against her. And
Oh, yeah, these things are
and then
standard. I mean,
thousands of people showed up on the street in support of him when he came up
yeah,
and said, "Hey,
because,
I just thought that
yeah,
was amazing."
because people are on the right side of history and it's too late already. And the few remaining people who are decided to stick it out and to be on the wrong side of history, good luck to them. But the fact is, none of these threats amount to anything. It's all a load of nonsense. I wouldn't be scared. I think what it does is it makes people nervous, and unfortunately, and that's the problem. It
Well, they're
stresses people out.
desperate. It's desperation. It's desperation. You know, you're dealing with people who we're threatening their identity. Okay, they literally feel
Yeah,
attacked. They feel scared.
yeah,
And what do
yeah.
you do when you back someone up in a corner? You know, they do crazy stuff like call
They
the
make
FBI.
accusations, they make threats, and to be honest with you, those kind of people would want others to make mistakes. They would want them to be anti-Semitic or whatever, because then they have something against them. They
That's
get
why the
really
protesters.
frustrated. Yeah,
Yes.
they get very frustrated when that doesn't happen. And basically, as long as you're a good, decent person, which most people are, and Chip is, and you're not, a racist and so on, then there's no breaking the law. People have the right to express their opinions. I'm afraid if people don't like it, that's their choice. But I mean,
Can I just ask, where
every time,
was the American police when there were those Nazi protests? There were literally white men marching on the streets with Nazi flags. I didn't see
yeah,
any
I mean,
police like
we
that.
have this problem in Britain. You know,
And
we
they
have
say
far
stop
right
war,
extremists
I
as
don't
well.
want war, and then all of a sudden they bring out like the craziest riot gear. It's like,
I've seen them in Chicago, right?
Yeah, I saw that too. I mean, look, at the
Chicago.
end of the day, what they're doing in Germany, what they're doing in the US, the overreaction to peaceful protesters, the same in Britain, the demonization of peaceful protesters, none of this will work, because this isn't just a Palestinian fight. This is a fight between right and wrong. This is a fight for the future. This is a fight for human history, because humanity is on the brink, and some people think that they can keep pushing us down the wrong path, and people are no longer tolerating that. The majority of the world no longer tolerates it.
Kurdish, you're Jewish, right?
Well, I mean, my grandmother was Jewish.
Yeah,
On my mother's side.
I remember seeing you on a panel where you were addressing the issue where they were saying that the Arabs kicked out the Jews from their country, and you were telling the story how the Zionists were spreading fear between the Jewish so they can escape. Am I correct?
Oh yeah, many bad things have happened like that. Exactly. I mean, my grandmother was Jewish. She never had a problem in Kurdistan in Iraq. My great-grandmother on my father's side was also Jewish. Many people who were Jewish were basically living side by side along with all the other Kurds. I think for Kurds in particular, religion is a secondary secondary kind of part of the identity. So there's never been a problem, really. I mean, the place where Jewish people lived in that city, it's called Suleymaniya. That place that has no Jews left in it, it's still called the Jewish Quarter. It's still called Julakan. So there's never been a problem. I mean, this is a European problem, and this is a historical problem. And I think none of us need to be afraid, as long as we are good, decent people. You know, nobody's perfect, but the fact is, the law is very clear. And I think people trying to use the law against people who have the right for free speech and to express their thoughts and opinions, that will never work. It will never work. Not in a country like America or the UK.
Yeah, I've heard many stories like that in Egypt, where the Zionists did some tea attack on the Jewish community so they can scare them and make them run to go live in Israel. That happened in Yemen too, and that happened in...
Real quick, before you
before you finish that thought, I have to jump in the shower for about 5 minutes. So Federico, if you're going to stay, would you mind just keeping the conversation manageable in the next 5 minutes?
Sure, no problem.
Okay, I'll be
See you
right
in a
back.
bit.
Hey, Doc, Kurdish Doc, go on, man. I love listening to you talking.
No, it's
I know I
fine.
got
Look, guys, you know what it is? I tell you one thing. I've been through this many times. There are people out there who are adamant that they will demonize people who stand up for the innocents and those who are trampled upon and those who are oppressed. It's never easy. It's never easy to stand up for the oppressed. It's always easy to look away. It's always easy to pretend it's not happening. And it's very easy sometimes to be on the side of the oppressor. But in the long term, all those people will be isolated. And there will be fewer and fewer of them. To the extent... Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you that you say that. I think that's very important encouragement. We have to encourage each other because let me tell you something. This whole Israel-Palestine thing, it has not only shined light on what's going on in the Middle East, but it has raised a lot of questions on various ways we are being oppressed in society. One way is with the whole system, how it's built in America, how we vote, how we treat minorities, literally everything. Lobbying, who is really in power, all this stuff. So
Why do you want to?
I posted a video.
Why do you want to post?
Let me just quickly finish. I posted a video where I talked about the protests and I said something about cops denying water to protesters. And I got
I was trying to speak since like more than half an hour ago. No, an hour ago.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Okay, well, can I just wrap up?
Yeah.
And give you
Yeah,
guys-
wrap it up, and then we'll Natrium.
Yeah.
We'll go.
I just want to say that I just got so much hate for it, and that's how we also are being oppressed. There's a lot of oppression in the society, and when I got all that hate, I kind of got a little scared. I was like, oh my gosh. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that encouragement.
No, it's fine. I mean, that's what they're doing in the UK. And that's exactly what's happening here. The establishment, the politicians, what they're trying to do is demonize the protesters and anyone else who has an opinion that they don't like. And they're very clever about it. And many people, it does work on many people. People start worrying about their livelihood, their family, their community, whatever it may be. The fact is,
let's give Natrium a minute.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
And I'd like to say something
you
after
make
him.
like two questions basically that caught my attention. First question: why this is happening? Why everyone want that piece of land, right, in the Middle East? Well, Middle East is actually a term used by the CIA, but long story short, many claims that piece of land contains a lot of petrols, a lot of gas, a lot of oil, and some other natural finite resource. Let me tell you something. I came from a country that is extremely rich in absolutely everything. We have oil, we have gas, we even have this material that is basically like vibranium, so you can understand.
Are you from
It's
Norway?
molten. No. Norway is nothing compared to this land. We have this material, this metal, which is tantalum. Without it, you wouldn't have any electronic whatsoever. You need tantalum for every single capacitor and semiconductors in existence nowadays. So this material is basically like vibranium because you only can find it in two places in the entire world. One is in South Africa, and the second place is in Argentina, bro. Do you understand? So my country is one of the richest country in the entire world. We may not have some gems like diamond and stuff like that, which are extremely common and extremely useless, by the way. But we have so many other stuff. And let me tell you something. And this is really important. That is not important for them, the natural resources, but that land, it is an obscurial, filled with darkness, And the reason that they have so many saviors is because they need saviors, either from one religion or any other religion. They always need a savior because they can't save themselves. So that place is freaking them to the core. That's it. That's all of it. It's not about the natural resources. It's just about the people
Yeah.
that lives in there. If I were to live there, I would have fleed immediately, like I'm trying to do from my country. But long story short, that's the point. Second point, imagine that I were to invade a planet, that I want to slave an entire race of intelligent beings. I'm far more advanced technologically. What would I do? Well, first of all, I will declare myself as a god, but not the god of the entire world. I will declare myself and I will present myself with different name to different parts of that world, creating different religions. And what will I do? I'm gonna make them fight. Oh yeah. I'm gonna make all of them worship me and fight for me, so I will keep them occupied all the time, not knowing what the hell is going on. So long story short, people wake up, stop living this fantasy. By the way, boat is absolutely useless. You should know that by now.
Well, you're a very smart man, Atrium. You're right on the money.
Thank you so much. I didn't understand all of that. I have to be honest with you, but I think the history.
Take your time.
Say that again. Sorry. Hello. Oh, okay.
Take
So
your time.
I think.
Remember it and take your time. It is not easy to digest. It's too much information.
I think the problem of Israel and Palestine is quite obvious. It's opportunism, colonialism, and racism. What happened in the Middle East is basically it's the same picture in every part of the Middle East. Even the word Middle East is a colonial term. To be honest with you, it's west of Asia. It's like Eastern Europe, Western Europe. We don't call it, Midwest or whatever. The point is that the Palestinians have been chosen to be the victims of a century long century of oppression and injustice, and it started in Europe, and I think it will end in Europe. To be honest with you, and this is why Germany now is having so much trouble. They're facing a cultural calamity and a crisis because what they're doing in Germany right now, oppressing protesters, preventing their people from expressing themselves, shutting down conferences that shed light on the plight of the Palestinians, preventing doctors and others and educators and professionals from coming into the country. This kind of reaction is the reaction of a nation that understands its role in this catastrophe, in this worldwide catastrophe. Because World War II may have ended on a specific date, but it did not end for the Palestinians and for the people of the Middle East. It actually started on the day that it ended here in Europe, because we had to take the brunt of it. We had to suffer the consequences of it. The Jewish people who were forced out of Europe, the survivors, were sent to Palestine as a project. I mean, they've been used, frankly speaking. I think many of them now realize that. They have been used, they have been weaponized, and they have quite literally been weaponized. They have become weapons of destruction. Young Israeli soldiers have become weapons of destruction, death machines in Palestine. And the fact that Europe is now reacting in the way it's doing, it's because they know it will eventually come full circle. They know that questions will begin to be asked here, back home, where all this started. And Germany will certainly have to answer many questions, and it will come in time. It's still early days, but the people of Germany have realized this already. Their government is still in denial. Their leaders are still trying to oppress and control the narrative. But the truth is, Germany is the place where this will be solved and where this will be answered. The Palestinians have suffered long enough. We have all suffered.
Can we give Rasmi a time? She
Go
hasn't
ahead.
spoken. Yeah.
By all means.
Rasmi. She on? Rasmi Rus. I guess she's not. She's here.
Sorry, I didn't realize my microphone was off.
That's all right.
Anyway, yeah, all full support from, I'm Indonesian, and as always, Indonesian support for Palestine. And I love history, guys. Like I look at the land of Palestine, or the land of Canaan, back then, from the historical sites. I was in Mesopotamia, south of Iraq, last year, and I went to visit museums after that in Baghdad, and saw some, tablets that was written on clay, and where the fall of the king of Yahud, falling to the king of Akkadian king at that time. And then there's another tablet that was written that the ransom, what they had to pay ransom to the Akkadian kings, and then there is another writing, a tablet that was basically all these slaves that was taken from Judea. They were given this much cow as like they are slaves. We have to take care of them. We feed them. We give them this much barley, this much wheat per month. It was records of their even they were slaves. They were being taken care of well by the people of Mesopotamia at that time. And
Are you talking about Hammurabi's code?
no, Hammurabi Code is something else. This is just like a report of those slaves from Judea had been taken care of. They're given some place to stay, and we look after them well, it says. And then there was another inscription carving of the king of Yahud kissing the foot of the king of Mesopotamia. So to me, and then I also went to the place where Prophet Abraham was born in Zagorod. So when those people were saying, "Oh, the land is a promised land by us because we are the children of Abraham," right? But then people forgot that if it is the land for the children, the God chosen people, the children of Abraham, his firstborn was Ishmael. People forget that, even though he was born out of from what they claim to be Hagar, was not native from that land. Hagar was Nubian. He was from Egypt, but it doesn't change the fact that Ishmael was the firstborn son of Prophet Abraham. So if they said that it is the land for the chosen people, the people of Abraham, Ishmael, which is the father of the Muslim, hey, we are the God chosen people too. That was
The history is so amazing. Like we talk history, it's yeah.
that guy. What was his name? The Abu something.
Abu Ammar.
He was saying Abu Ammar. He was claiming it was promised to us. I said, hey, you guys forget that Ismail was also Abraham's son. And the word Israel was the name given to Judah afterward. So why do they only give it to one tribe? What about the other? I mean, Jacob had 12 children. What about the other 11 tribes? You know? And if they want to talk about history and the land who it belonged to, they were kicked out many years ago and taken as slaves to Mesopotamia, which is modern day Iraq, and also to all the way to Egypt. So
Wow.
their land was,
Yep.
yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Rasmi. We're gonna give Rolling a time to. Do you wanna share
Okay,
anything,
thanks.
Rolling?
Not right now. I'm just enjoying the information coming in. But I did want to say something really quickly pertaining to. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I did want to say something. We're talking about threats being made and all that, and I wanted to offer a perspective, a large perspective, that for 75 years, the Zionists have tightly controlled the narrative on what happens in Palestine, right? And ever since 10/7 and TikTok and Instagram, where we were getting live streamed a real-time HCOST that has exploded and woken up Gen Z and the millennials, and you see all the protests around the world, that we're becoming suddenly educated. So we've had this crash course in the history of Palestine, and people are waking up to the truth. And so that's why I believe we're seeing such vicious threats coming, because they have had the luxury of controlling that narrative for so long, and now regular, a 22-year-old kid from Montana who has educated himself on this can go toe to toe with Zionists, and it's freaking them out. And that's why, and I also wanted to say they're used to these threats because on a smaller scale in the region, say if I lived in Egypt and I was pro-Palestinian, if somebody threatened me, it would be a lot scarier, But here I am in the middle of America, and when they make these threats, it's like yawn, whatever, and they're not used to people talking back to them. And that's why they're getting so desperate and saying there's so much hate in these protests and everything. So that's,
and this is why they're
really
trying to ban TikTok, aren't they?
Exactly.
In America, this is part of the reason.
Precisely.
It's partly because of this information flow that's coming to America. Because with all due respect, the rest of us do have all this information, and have had all this information for a very long time. But I think the Western media prevents people in the West from knowing things to make informed judgments. And I think that's the real challenge. That's the real problem, to keep that information flow going in the right direction. What you said is true, but can I add something? It also, all this information, TikTok and so on, all this reporting, it doesn't just encourage those people who have a strong moral compass to rise up and to speak up, but it also prevents those people with a weak moral compass to sit on the fence. Because in Britain, for example, for a long time, any controversial issue or anything that was deemed even slightly controversial, people would just say, oh, I don't know much about it, I'm not that sure, I'm not very well informed, too complicated, etc. Now it's embarrassing to say that. It's idiotic to say that. It's childish to say that. Because people immediately turn around and say, where have you been? Well, where do you live? Because it's everywhere. And that's a powerful thing, because the technology is actually helping human civilization to become more moral. People usually fearmonger around technology. They say, oh, it's bad for the kids, it's bad for this and that. And it's completely the opposite. What is bad for the kids is the adults who lead us, the dictators, and
the
those
censorship,
people
the gaslighting.
They're the ones who say they represent us. They're the real danger. Even their teachers could be a danger. What isn't a danger is technology. Because in my era, when I went through this kind of genocide in Iraq and Kurdistan, there was no social media. There was no live reporting. It would take months for people to even find out a fraction of the truth, by which point much of the evidence is gone, etc. So things have changed immensely. And Israel...
I'm going to have to disagree. Because technology is not... it is a bigger problem, because from now on, with AI, we don't know what is real and what is not anymore.
I trust AI more than humans. I would love it if AI was able to lead us.
You don't get it. You don't
I would
understand.
trust a computer program
Okay, I get it. But you
more
don't
than a
understand
human
what
being.
I'm trying to say. Dude, I'm not trying to say that. Listen carefully. Just hold up. Just
Okay, I'll
listen.
listen. Go ahead.
What I'm saying is nowadays you see a picture, you see a video, and you don't know if that is real or something made up by an AI. Do you understand what I'm
What do you mean
saying?
by real, though? What's your definition of real?
Oh, come on, bro.
Yeah.
For
No,
real?
it is. If something exists, it exists. Something has been created. So regardless of whether you think it's real or I think it's real, it's there, right? So the evidence will speak for itself. That's the information will define itself.
So if I make a picture of you doing something bad, something naughty,
Yeah.
with a teenager, and I show it to your
Yeah.
wife, she's gonna say, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is real because I have seen it."
Well, I think this
Do
is
you
a weird
understand what you're saying?
conversation, but since we're having it anyway, what I would say is that usually when something like that happens, people will make a judgment based on that person's history and character and integrity and so on. They're not going to just jump to conclusions and say, okay, well, this is the truth. That's the end of the matter. So
99% of the people don't know you. I don't know you, dude. If I see something like that, what do you think I'm gonna think about you?
Well,
I don't know you.
I don't know what you're going to think. I don't know how much relevance
come
this has
on,
on
bro.
the Israel-Palestine issue.
Can
but,
we slow it
you
down
know,
a little
we're
bit?
going in a very strange direction now.
No, it's not a strange direction. It's all about narratives. It's all about media control. It's all about propaganda.
Yes, there
If you
are
control the
deep
media,
fake
if you
videos.
control the propaganda, this is
One at a
warfare.
time, guys. One at a time, please.
You can have deep fake videos, but the frequency and the steady stream that was coming out of say Visan, all those
Oh,
journalists
Chip's
that were
back.
there,
Chip's back to save us.
live streaming, and we're live streaming everything.
Don't count on it.
The conversation's
that was
gone into a
happening
bit of a weird
so
direction,
quickly.
Chip. Save us.
Yeah.
It's gone into AI and I
That-
don't know what else.
Those images were coming
I
out
want to
so
hear what
quickly
Roland
that it's
Darmo has to say. Let Roland speak. I want to hear what he has to say.
yes, there are deep fake videos. I've seen those too, and even the deep fake videos, someone with discernment can even determine. I don't know what that is, but that looks fake. But compare that to the stream, the
You can when
24/7
you're using
stream,
when
the
you're using
24/7
text,
stream
you
of
can. When
images
you're
coming
using
out
artificial
of
intelligence,
Gaza.
you can't.
Finish.
Bro, it's
Let him
impossible
finish.
when you use artificial intelligence. You can't.
Let
You
him
can
finish.
only determine there is a fake video when you are using effects made by computers. But when
You
an
interrupted
artificial
I
him.
can
intelligence
tell
do
the
it
difference.
from
I can tell
zero,
the
from
difference.
scratch,
That term, you interrupted him.
Yeah, to be able to fake, I feel like we're getting into dangerous territories because you're almost implying that the images everybody was seeing coming out of Gaza for the first 3 months when Israel started its program were been
I never say that.
AI generated.
That's your
and that's just
conclusion.
nonsense.
I never say that.
I have seen. All
I never
right,
say
then
that.
what are you trying to say? All right. So anyway,
Well,
yeah,
the conversation
there is
shifted that
AI
way
out there.
because he says that the technology is something that will relieve you from absolutely everything. Like, don't think anymore.
Sure, we have to be
Just
cautious.
trust in technology, and it's not that way. You still have to think. If you don't think, and machine will start to think for you. Your brain will shrunk.
But hold on.
and it
With
will
all
start
due
to work.
respect, Natrium, I have no idea why we're going into this strange direction. What I said is that through technology, we're able to see the truth. And I'm talking about very basic technology. I'm talking about a mobile phone with a camera. I'm talking about people being able to post things on TikTok instead of it being censored by Israel. I'm talking about internet access. I'm talking about really basic things, right? So that people can be interviewed live, so that we can see things as it's happening instead of all the evidence being cleared away, etc. All these mass graves, all these, genocides being committed, hospitals being bombed, all these idiotic Israeli soldiers dancing around in women's lingerie in Gaza, that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about deeper, more complex metaphysical issues that we may have to face in 10 or 20 years' time, etc. I'm talking about just really simple things here, okay? So in my time in the 1980s and 90s in Iraq, in Kurdistan when a genocide was being committed against us, we did not have a camera. We did not have a mobile phone to be able to film these things, these atrocities, right? So that later there was no evidence of it or less evidence of it. And also people were unable to be informed. They didn't know what was happening to us. They still don't know. And they still deny it. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about simple things, pictures, videos, interviews, yeah? That kind of stuff.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Thought. Talking about like AI and war and stuff like that. Well, what if it ever went the other way, where AI got so good that you could generate footage of kids dying and all this stuff that we're seeing on Palestine, just to generate like public opinion, just like Israel has been doing? I mean, isn't that crazy? Could it go that direction? I don't even know.
I think the reason why that's unlikely is because we will become more sophisticated as technology becomes more sophisticated.
Yes, exactly.
So we're not going to just sit there and say, okay, we see some video here, and this is definitely true, and it's definitely not likely to be AI, and so on. We would have the capacity to investigate, to scrutinize, to assess.
What do you mean? When you
All
say
of
we,
us.
what do you mean?
Well, more and more people. The more technology becomes accessible,
so
the more
you have a
democratic the
quantum
society
computer.
will be.
Oh, okay. So you have a quantum computer then?
Well, look, I'm talking at a basic level about basic technology that people can use to collect evidence, okay? That's what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the people in Gaza being able to film the atrocities and to preventing the Israeli army from hiding it. That's what I'm saying here, right? Only a few years. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Only a few years ago, Israel had full control of all the information coming out of Gaza, Palestine, etc. They had monopolized the media. Every time they committed an atrocity against Palestinians, they would be able to send their army of speakers and manipulators and liars and so on into the media. Now when you see them, now when you see these old faces, they tremble, they sweat, they stutter, because they know their lies are no longer
they're being challenged.
Yeah, and they're no longer able to control the information. They're being squeezed by all the truth that's coming out. Their lies are being squeezed out. And that is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about technology assisting humanity in a way that allows us to assess information better. I'm not talking about some, AI world, some sort of sci-fi world where everything's robotics and so on. I'm not talking about that, right? We're talking about the reality of today as we are now. And we are able to scrutinize videos and so on. And technology is enabling us to make better judgments. There was a time when people in the Middle East used to think that people in the West just had no humanity in them, no empathy. Now we have hope because we see all these campuses, all these young people, all these protests, people coming out, anyone on the street, The other day I saw a bin man in England collecting garbage, and someone asked him, he said, "What's your dream?" And he said, "My dream is for Israel to stop bombing Gaza," right? Now, someone like that, to be able to articulate that, it is because of technology and information, right? We have democratized information flow, because there was a time when we couldn't even get a word in. We couldn't even speak. We wouldn't even have a platform. I have 70,000 plus people following me on TikTok, right? And I'm just a random Kurdish guy, right? I would never be able to have that without technology. You couldn't pack a room with that, right? So there's the power. Yes, it's a shift in power. It's a shift in dynamics. There was a time when people like me were totally irrelevant. Irrelevant. It didn't matter what I thought, what I read, what I knew. It was totally irrelevant. Today, we can have a voice, and it is only with credibility that you get a voice. You don't just gain followers. You don't just gain, a platform just by talking. It's about the truth. It's about information. It's about accuracy. That's how it happens. So technology has helped me and people like me and all of you, and it's helping us right now to come together from all around the world to speak to one another as human beings. I mean, that's an incredible thing. You know, all these reporters from Gaza, because Israel is preventing reporters from going in. So people are becoming their own reporters.
The tool
People
is
are picking up.
the tool is good. It's just who uses it and how they use it.
Exactly. And right now it's the people that are using it. It's the victims that are using it. And that is why it's a great thing. It's a revolution. Of course, yeah, that's what they're trying. Yeah, of course. And that's the reason why. They don't even understand what they're trying to ban in America. These old, beaten up, useless politicians don't even understand what they're doing. Because the idea of banning TikTok, millions of voices every day, it is a preposterous thing to do.
We need term limits. We need term limits because I think if you're too old to sit in the government to represent your country, you're not only representing that generation.
Exactly. I agree with that.
Doctor,
one
thing I wanted to ask you. I know you're Kurdish, and there's Kurds that splits all over our area. What is your stand on Iran? What do you think of Iran?
I think Iran is a country that is not represented by the so-called government that is presiding over it. Iran is a huge nation of millions of people, beautiful culture, multi-layered, thousands of years of history, many different groups and languages, and all these people are oppressed. None of them are truly spoken for. None of them are truly represented. And if there was democracy in Iran, if we lived in a world where Iran was a democracy, where people had a voice, what you would see is a very powerful nation with a very strong moral voice in this world. And that is exactly what the West doesn't want. What they want is for Iran to be a broken up, beaten up, battered, exhausted entire country ruled by a bunch of psychopaths who basically would have everything in common with Benjamin Netanyahu. They would agree on everything, absolutely everything, even the color of their urine, and everything else. So Iran is a great country, and one day, when it becomes a democracy, it will be a very powerful voice, moral voice. It will make a very strong stance on things like genocide and so on, and it will obviously support the Palestinians, but in a different way. Because what the regime is doing today is exactly just enough to keep conflict going. Because as long as the conflict is away from their regime, they can continue to control and manipulate their people. They're not helping the Palestinians to such an extent that the problem will be solved, because then that would put the attention back on them. What they're doing is allowing conflict to continue. And the bombs and the weapons and these drones, they don't feed the Palestinians. It doesn't feed the children who are starving right now. So,
can you land it like 30 seconds or let someone else have it?
Yeah, no, go ahead. I'm fine. Go ahead.
Okay, I want to give.
I just have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Al.
Thank you, Chip. Appreciate your hosting this conversation. Sorry, guys. I'm not perfect English. I can say mistakes. Just excuse me from the beginning. I just want to ask Kurdish, or I can call you Kaka.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's your stand for Iraq?
So I think Iraq is a beautiful country with incredibly talented people, right? Whether you're Kurdish, Arabic, Sunni, Shia, it doesn't matter. And it is a country that has suffered immensely, just like Palestine, just like the rest of the Middle East. 1 century of oppression, colonialism, assimilation, and so on, death and destruction. So my view of Iraq, Syria, Turkey, all these countries, is that we need to transcend beyond nationalism and politics, and we need to find ways to unite so that we can be strong, so that we can help each other. Because before the age of nationalism that was imposed on us, we had something greater than that. We had unity, we had an empire, we had the ability to...
Global community. We need to build a global community. Yes, we need to think as an earth instead of different countries.
Exactly. I mean, my grandfather was born before Iraq existed, right? So it's really not that old. And I feel sad for people who think that they should be proud of a nation that was essentially forced on top of us, created for us by colonizers, right? The borders, the lines were drawn by colonizers. We, the people, have existed long before all these nations and borders. What we need to do is realize that the European Union was forming at the same time as we were being divided. Now we need to aspire to something greater than the boundaries of our own nations. We need to see that on the other side of these borders are people who share the same aspirations and dreams. And we need to find a way to get together. We need to use technology, we need to use politics, we need to use everything that we have at our disposal to come together. Because Iraq truly is a beautiful country. I mean, if you travel through the Tigris from north to south, south to north, you will see history, you will see extraordinary things. I mean, amazing things. Cities and kingdoms and empires, beautiful things, you know, that will make you realize how small we truly are as individuals, as human beings, you know, in the midst of thousands of years of history and culture. And the whole region, the entire region, you know, is filled with culture. And we need to find a way to grow beyond colonialism, nationalism, fascism, racism, etc.
Yeah, Doc, I really enjoy your talk. Don't you think the Iranian involvement in the Middle East has shifted the Middle East from being the gold sack of the Western world?
Yeah, I mean, I think Iran is very powerful, and it has been heavily oppressed by the West over a very long time. Its resources, its people, you know, for far too long. And remember, in that part of the world, British colonizers, towards the latter stages of the British colonial era, did their best to colonize us. They did their best to colonize Iran, Iraq, the Kurdish areas, and so on. And we still have very, you know, bitter memories from that time. So Iran would be an even stronger, more powerful country if it wasn't so heavily oppressed by the West, and if their dictators were not allowed to continue in the way that they do. Because Iran is exactly.
Do you think the Iran during the Shah day is better than Iran today?
No, I don't think so. I think the problem is it's always easy to look back at the past, and some people do that, and they say, "Oh, it was better then." I think the Shah.
I think everybody what they're looking at Iran, because I honestly I am Lebanese, and if it wasn't for Iran, I would have not been able to free my country.
That's true.
So I'm looking at it because I really do not want to support somebody that oppresses its own people, even though you helped me free my country. But I will not support you if you help me free myself and then you go oppress your own.
And this is a classic conundrum that we have had to face in the Middle East many times, sadly.
But when I look at Iran during the 70s, the revolution, I would agree with everything you said right now. But if I look at Iran today, I will disagree strongly because you know, the people of Iran, and I don't judge the Iranian government by their actions. But when I look at the demonstration and when people go on the streets, starting in 1975, when Imam Khomeini went back to Iran, and I see the massive of people on the streets.
Yeah.
And when General Soleimani was unalived, and I looked at the TV, and I see millions and millions and millions on the streets marching for him.
Yeah.
And then when something against the government happened, and I see when they do a demonstration and they put the camera on people, and it's so tight, it's not even believable. I question when Iran has been under sanctions for the past 35, 40 years. Now they produce their own vehicles. 96% of their medications are self-produced. Fourth country in nanotechnology. They play a major role in BRICS. Don't you think that that regime have made a long stretch into the world society?
No, I don't think so. And the reason why is because I know a lot about a country like Iran. I know it very close up and in great detail. I think the regime has taken away its potential because Iran could have been much greater than even that. I think what you're seeing is one side of Iran. And it's true, that side of Iran exists. So if Iran was a total democracy, you might have maybe about half the people supporting some sort of, religious governance that is Shia dominated, etc. Maybe not to the extent of today with the brutality, but yes, definitely a conservative, a religious conservative government. There will be another half of Iran.
When you say brutality, what do you mean by brutality?
So
Like,
I'll explain. Before that, though, there will be another half of Iran, if it was a total democracy, who would have different opinions and would seek different representation. So then you'd have a multi-layered government, because Iran is a huge country. Remember that.
Yeah.
A multi-layered system.
it's a continent, basically.
Yeah, with many different voices. And that's what's missing in Iran. It's not the fact that they disagree with each other on moral issues, on principles, and on some political issues. It's the fact that they don't have a voice on behalf of their respective cultures, language, history, ethnicity, and so on. That's the problem. And
any fraction of the 90 million Iranian not represented in the Iranian parliament?
Oh yeah, at least half the population, at least.
I want to say something as well to this.
Yeah,
point.
no, that's fine. I'll end it by saying this. Iran's a great country, but it would be much greater if the West stopped finding ways of propping up its dictatorship. Because what they do is they want you to believe that, yeah, exactly. They want you to believe that they're against the regime of Iran. They want you to believe that they're acting as enemies. What they're really doing is they want Iran exactly where it is. And that's the problem. What the Iranians want...
You think so? You think the West wants to support Lebanon, to kick Israel out of Lebanon? Do you think the West wants Iran to support H group to the limit where
maybe. Maybe.
No, maybe it's not.
It's possible at different times and at different points based on different interests. Yes, at the end of the day, what the West has tended to do is divide the Middle East in ways that keep us below a threshold that allows us to dominate the region and have a real voice on the world.
Let's hear from Alex. Alex, you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to make one point to the. I'm sorry, I'm going to call you the Kurdish doctor. You're absolutely very well informed on this issue, more than me, no doubt. So everybody knows about the 1953 coup that deposed Mohammad Mossadegh, and then they put in the Shah, and then of course we all know about the revolution happened. But this has always been the goal of Western imperialism. I forgot the name of that one general who basically spoke about a few days after the incident that happened in 2001. He said that the goals of the West was to destabilize like Libya, Syria, Somalia.
It was Wesley Clark.
Yeah, Wesley Clark. That's the guy's name. Thank you, sir. And they want to finish off with with Iran, and those were the goals of Israel as well. And one other thing that basically proves this point, when WikiLeaks came up and all, there was a leaked email of the lady Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton. So in that email, she basically says, you know how the United States, like, oh, we support democracy, we support that. So when they were busy funding these Syrian rebels, in one of her emails, she basically says they don't care about that. The only thing they care about is basically making sure that Syria goes down so they can install like a proxy state there that would help Israel. So and the thing is, the most, like, I'm an American, and the most alarming thing for me is, like, what I've learned these past 7 months is how shielded we Americans are. Like, we live in a bubble of a bubble of a bubble. Like, you will never see the mainstream media talk about these things. And I was like, I kid you not, like I hate using this phrase, but honestly, like I did wake up from the Matrix. Like I realized, dude, like we're the bad guys. Like we are the empire. Like the stuff that we have done in South America. I mean, of course, that I don't even want to go into the Middle East. It's just horrific. And then we make these enemies. We fund our military industrial complex, and then the media in this country, which I'm honest to God, I'm so nauseated with it. I am just so exhausted with it. They go on this media blitz and say, "Oh,
That's right.
they hate us. They're barbaric. They're this, that," and it's just, it's honestly, like I'm a whole different person. Like it's surreal that this is happening, and I've been doing my best to educate people. But then you have those people who accuse you, of being like a commie, of being brainwashed by TikTok. Those type of people. It will take a massive undertaking to get Americans out of this propaganda we live in. But, and of course, like we all know on here why they want to ban, like basically TikTok. It's just like they want to manufacture consent. It's a term by Noam Chomsky. But
Yeah, it's an act of desperation, by the way.
exactly. Yep. Very true, sir. And okay, my main point on here is I was just infuriated because I just saw this video of this one, notorious Zionist called Golda Daphna. I don't know if you know her, but God, she pisses me off too much. But so she makes a video about like, okay, she's always, like, so one thing I've noticed about these Zionists is how they always want to call themselves the victim. So one video, she's saying, "Oh, we're so victimized," and the next video she makes, she's basically dancing to some TikTok song saying, "Oh,
I saw that, yeah.
yeah. Basically saying, "Oh, Colombia chose not to divest from Israel," and then of course all the comments are calling her out. But another infuriating thing about this girl. Sorry, I know I'm going on a specific rant, but I'm so angry. This is that same vile. I know I have to keep my mouth in order, but I will never forget this girl because she was the one. I don't know if you remember the grandfather who lost his granddaughter in.
Yeah,
Who lost his
yeah.
granddaughter
Ruh
in Gaza.
Ruh.
Yep.
Ruh.
Yeah. Soul of my soul. Like, forgive me for not saying the name right, but this Zio was on live, drunk in Tel Aviv, saying, "Oh, that's not real. She's a doll." So I just remember that when I saw her video, and I am like, they have no humanity. Like it's
horrible.
It's
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 just
that.
Zionist. It's the name. The
Yes.
definition is Zionist.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just
Right,
I-
guys.
I cried that day.
One second, guys. Chip is eating, so tap the screen where he's at, so you can support the live and share the live. It's good conversation. Everybody here is knowledgeable and very talkative. So
and
tap Chip's face on his screen.
Yeah, right here, right here.
Right here,
one
right
more
on his
thing about
forehead.
that.
Hey,
Yeah.
Alex, whenever you can, just pass it to Ethan when you're done.
Yes.
Okay, last thing I'm gonna say. So another thing about that Zio is she's actually in her ancestral homeland of Florida. She was born and raised in Florida, and so she's there now. And then she has this audacity to act indigenous to occupied Palestine. So I've just had it with them, and I'm glad people are seeing through their BS because this kind of reminds me like a line from Star Wars where like Princess Leia tells like that Grand Moff Tarkin, the more you squeeze, the more star systems will fall out of your fingers. And that's what they're trying to do. The more they squeeze, the more they control, the more people will start to wake up and realize what's happening. Thank you guys. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. That's amazing.
Thank you, man. That's amazing.
Hello, everyone. I want to introduce myself. I am Life
Just
Farm. I'm
live from 1 second, taking turns. Ethan, you can go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Lifeform. Ethan was waiting first. You can go ahead in a minute.
I guess you went on break. Live form, what do you?
Oh, so okay. I will wait for my turn. If it's my turn, I'm happy to speak. If not, I'll wait.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Ali, did you want to say anything? Anybody wants to say anything before you
Yeah,
come back?
guys, I just want to ask for your stand from Hezbollah.
Who's the question for?
It's for you.
For me? I am from South Lebanon. So does that
Stand
answer the
for Hezbollah.
question?
Yeah, that's right. I understand.
Okay. Okay, so I'm Life Farm. I am currently living in US. I am from I lived 20 years in India and I lived 20 years in US. I'm about 40 years old. I do understand a lot of it. Of course, my country came. I mean, India came from similar kind of occupation, and I do understand a lot of it on this side. So I'm deeply sympathetic to plight of Palestine at this point, and I'm actually writing a book. It's almost like 80% done. I'm hoping to finish my book in few months, but that book is entirely started after going through my research on the Palestine.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, the history of colonialism in India is particularly brutal, and it's been made to look like it was a very kind of pleasant, almost kind of mutual, respectful thing. But India, at the start of colonialism, was one of the richest countries in the world, if not the richest, and it ended up being one of the poorest right at the end.
Right.
And in Britain, we were taught. In Britain, we were always taught as a student when I was a kid that England built the railways and England educated and England did this and that. We were never told about the 1 million Indians who died fighting in World War II. We were never told about the Bengal famine. We were never told about the fact that the wealth of India was squandered. I mean, I used to study at Queen Mary University in London, near East London, near Whitechapel. And if you go a bit further, you've got the port, basically in the Isle of Dogs, and it's basically a called Canary Wharf. It's a very rich area of London now, the business quarter, or one of the business quarters. And there, literally, the port is still called India Quay and so on. And the reason why it's called India Quay is because that's where all the stolen Indian goods would arrive to Britain. So, yeah, India suffered immensely, and I guess it's still suffering from that colonization.
Right. So I everything you said is absolutely correct. There is a few more things I need to add. Around 1960-65, India was positioned deeply supportive of Palestine. India always positioned to be like a complete supporter of Palestine. But slowly from 1970s and 80s, India's position is slightly shifting on that regards. That is due to some of the political rhetoric and political influence. Especially one of the events happened in around the 1990s is a Kargil war, where India had a war between, like in Kashmir area on top of that. Right, and then at that point, Israel did provided a lot of military technology.
They always do.
Yeah, I know. See, I'm not supporting any way or shape. Like I'm telling my point,
No, I understand. And they've done similar things with us, the Kurdish people.
Yes, exactly. So then, what's now happening is, I am seeing India right now, which is very, very weird for me, and which I'm not comfortable with me as well, because if you see all the Indians I speak with, or even like if you speak with average Indian, they are more or less kind of pro on the I side or Z side. You know what I'm saying? So so that is something I'm deeply disturbed with it, especially as an Indian. So that's something I'm very like I don't know how to put this, bro, but like I'm not able to like how the hell this all happen. Like all I'm out to say is like I'm really disturbed with all this.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, this is something, by the way, that Kurdish people went through. So for a long time, Kurds were made to believe, because basically Kurdish history in the last century, this is what someone else said, it's not my words, but a Kurdish intellectual made a very eloquent point of the fact that the last century of history has been written for us. It's not actually our history. And one thing that happened in particular is Israel found a way to make many Kurds believe that it was in our interest to be on the side of Israel.
Right,
and
right.
in the last few months,
Mm-hmm.
all of that has changed to such an extreme point that it's come all the way to the other side. Because the one thing that Kurds are not able to stomach is the sheer level of violence, because we have been oppressed heavily, and so we simply cannot imagine committing such levels of violence under
Right,
any
right.
circumstances. And that's been very disturbing for the Kurdish psyche. I talked to a lot of people. They're very disturbed by it, because they once believed that Israel was this great country that we should look up to, that we should emulate. And suddenly we see soldiers dancing around in lingerie. We see children being starved and unalived mercilessly. Hospitals. I mean, that's something that many people can't get their head around. Hospitals being bombed, etc. So it's come all the way to the other side, and that's basically because of Israel and because of all the information that has come through. And to be honest with you,
Excuse me,
sadly,
guys. 1 second. Chip, you wanna check the real quick? See.
So, bro, I want to say one different point of view. I want to talk about the new information. All you said is perfectly right. The one of the challenge is also causing this entire thing is, as soon as I growing up in India, Muslims and Hindus lived like brothers. Like my town, when I grow up, we have a 40% of Muslim population, and we grow up like
yes,
if you look at the religious harmony, you have to look
yeah,
at like in India in like 1980s and 90s, like I would go to Muslim homes, and their Muslim moms, they would treat like my son. Like they would
yeah,
like get angry at me if I get less marks. Like
yeah,
they
like
they were
family, like
like
family, yeah,
family, yeah, right?
yeah,
Like, and if I eat less, they would, it's just like
yeah,
you cannot go and eat less. That's
yeah,
like it's like a weird relationship, like a family.
yeah,
So right. So, but now what's happening is this hatred is going so deep. Now all the Hinduism and nationalism and religiousism is going crazy,
yeah,
and now I'm seeing a lot of my Muslim brothers are becoming victim of this, and
yes,
a lot of the religious rhetoric is going so high. I mean, I'm seeing like a very, very dangerous damages. Like, I know the children, like, I understand all the damage happening. This is an even bigger damage at a certain types, right? Like,
yeah. It's dangerous because it can weaken Indian society in the same
right.
way it's weakened many other nations, in the Middle East. I mean, to be honest with you, I'll give you a medical perspective on what happened to India, which you might find interesting. It's quite disturbing as well. So earlier I mentioned the Bengal famine. The Bengal famine, created by Britain, basically. Churchill's policy was to take all the food that India was producing and to let them starve, basically, because in his opinion there were too many Indians around anyway, so he couldn't care less. Now that killed so many people. Check this out, guys. It killed so many people that in that region of India today, the survivors, when they come to Western countries like Britain, they have such a high predisposition to diabetes and central obesity that it is high predisposition to diabetes and central obesity that it is high predisposition. What happened?
Hey,
Diabetes and
Chip,
central
Chip,
obesity.
you got a recording playing. Chip,
What happened? Diabetes and central
you got
obesity.
you got a recording playing. Chip,
What happened? Diabetes and central obesity.
wow.
Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
Guys, can you hear
Hey,
me?
one quick fella, mute and unmute yourself a couple of times while you're on the panel so you don't get dropped. Here you go, you dropped. Yeah, that is something is happening. If you're staying on the panel and you're always mute, you get dropped. So I don't drop. I mute and unmute myself a couple of
Oh, I
times while
see.
I'm staying. Then, Chip,
Yeah.
you wanna make me a mod? I don't know if.
So, right, bro. I mean, I totally agree with you. And in my book, the
I
way
gotta
I'm
get off
writing,
here. I got it.
so in my book, the way I'm writing this entire narrative is
So drop me, please.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, in my book, the way I'm writing this entire narrative is following a money line, how money influenced all the things from a Dutch East India Company, which is a VOC, how it kind of started with the stock market,
Yeah.
how it lost its stock value, and in order to gain the stock, how it went to colonization, and how these businesses kind of overcame the Roman Empire, and how this colonization kind of resulted into this dehumanization and racism and all that. So in my
Yeah.
book, I'm presenting this entire story from from past all the way to how we ended up with the Palestine. But I'm writing through a money point of view, or how money influenced all the events subtle way to this point of view. Does it make
Yeah.
sense?
No, that's
So
brilliant. And once someone was asking, they were wondering what I meant about that, the story that I discussed about the Bengal famine. So what I was trying to say is that the survivors, because they were the survivors of a famine, their genetics was what allowed them to survive. And because of that, the descendants of those people are from the survivors. And so as a consequence of that, whenever they come to Western society and change their diet, they're at extreme risk of central obesity and diabetes. In other words, the genetics of that population changed because of the extreme levels of deaths due to that famine, which we know so little about. And again, this is British history, colonial history, etc. It spans all the way from the farthest regions of India to the rest of the Middle East. And this is why Iran's history, for example, is tangled in that mess, because Iran was a nation that was squandered. Its wealth was squandered in the latter phase of the British Empire when they were there. In fact, in Iraq, they sent Indians to rule over us. They sent Indians to do their bidding.
Right. Even
Yeah.
if you
One
look at
second, life. One quick fella. You got anything you want to say? I know he's been.
Even in the 1900s, when the Palestine Mandate came, after Palestine Mandate, around that time, the banking industry started first around 1900 and 1902, and all these banks kind of started by European Empire, and they were using British pound, which is a Palestine pound. They called it Palestine pound, but it pegged against British pound. So some of the Z side got a better access to those pounds. So they were buying lands left and right underneath people of Palestine. So that entire banking sector kind of took lands out of native people. It's like similar to like what's happening in Hawaii, where the rates are going and the native people are going away. It kind of like happened like that in that time in the Palestine.
Thank you,
Let's
life form.
give City Slicker first, and then, or no, one quick fellow, then City Slicker. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Gordish because.
Hold on one sec. It's going to be the other person first. One quick fellow.
Hi, I just have a question for Kurdish doctor. I'm Kurdish myself from northern Iraq, Hawlir, and my mum's from Mosul. And I just wanted to say, because I think the other guy spoke about it earlier, what is Israel's agenda with supporting the Kurds in terms of us becoming a nation and supposedly us also having a Jewish descent of them? What is the answer to that, Kaka?
Thank you. I appreciate that. So basically, Israel's agenda is very simple with Kurdish people. It's to use and manipulate us and to weaponize us against our neighbors, because they see an opportunity. I'm talking about the Israeli government now and intelligence services. I'm not talking about the people. So don't mistake me, guys. The Israeli government policy with Kurds is that they see an opportunity of an oppressed people, and they want to leverage us against Iran and so on. Now the problem is that's because they misunderstand us. We see Kurdish people, we tend not to have a desire to be in conflict with our neighbors. We tend to want to live in peace because we have a lot in common with our neighbors, culturally and so on. So we don't have an interest in being at war with neighbors in the way that, for example, the Israeli government might be, constantly at war with one nation or the other. And the other thing is that we as Kurds have actually suffered because of that so-called Israeli support, which isn't really support. I mean, remember that one of the Kurdish leaders one of the main Kurdish leaders, freedom fighters, considered a T word by Turkey and a few other nations, was captured by Israel and handed over to Turkey by Israeli intelligence services.
Abdullah Öcalan.
Yeah, exactly. In Kenya, it is the Israeli intelligence services, the Mossad, who captured him and handed him straight to Turkey. And ever since then, he's been on an island on his own in a prison complex. So the fact is that Israel is not really supportive of Kurdish aspirations. They just see an opportunity there. And they might even turn against us.
Kind of like throw us under the bus.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think, we talk about, for example, Jewish people, right? So the Kurdistan, the Kurdish people have a deep and long history. So at some point, many of us were Jewish, right? Our ancestors were predominantly Jewish and Christian and local religions. And then we obviously became Muslims. So it's no surprise that there are Kurdish Jews, because some of the most ancient synagogues and so on are in Kurdistan. But that doesn't mean that, say, my Jewish grandmother, for example, she would have never agreed with anything to do with Israel. So the religion aside, there's not really much else in common anyway. We are the opposite of Israel. We are basically, because what Israel has tried to make us believe is that we're somehow, we share some sort of common history of oppression. But we are the opposite of Israel. We are a native people divided into 4 different countries, right? They are colonizing people who oppressed the natives. So it's a huge difference. So we're basically like the Palestinians. So we have much more in common with the Palestinians, and culturally as well, obviously, because Kurds have traveled throughout the Middle East. So there are many Palestinians, Syrians, and others with Kurdish descent, and so on. So I mean, there was a family that was in the media a few years ago when their home was taken over by Israeli settlers, and they were called the Al-Kurd family because obviously their lineage at some point went back to the Kurdish people.
I understand, and Kaka, because the thing is, recently there was the IDF ransacked a house in Gaza, and they drew up a Kurdistan flag saying "Free Kurdistan" in the house. And
Yeah, I know.
Yes, you heard about that.
Most likely,
I saw that, and that's because they want to manipulate people's minds.
That's right. That's what I
Yeah,
thought. Because usually
exactly.
Kurds
So
would say,
basically,
Kurds
Kurds
would say
have.
Busy Kurdistan, not free Kurdistan. That's usually what a Kurd would say.
Yeah. I mean, we have a very low tolerance for violence. So even the so-called T words, the groups for Kurdish freedom fighters, they're considered T words. They've never gone outside of their strict borders. We've never gone beyond a certain point. So we don't have that philosophy. We have a very, very low level of tolerance for that kind of violence and atrocity. When Saddam was toppled, the people of his native city, Tikrit, were very fearful that Kurdish soldiers would go in and massacre them. And yet they did the exact opposite. They did nothing. The Kurds did nothing. So we don't have that kind of,
Saddam actually told his daughter, go towards the Kurds because they are more trustworthy than because his daughter
that's
said,
true.
where do we go? Yeah. His daughter asked, where do we go if the Americans invade? And he goes, you head towards the Kurds because they're more
that's
trustworthy.
true. Yeah, because in spite of his brutality and all that he did to us, he still knew that he can rely on Kurds to protect, his daughter, etc., because they would be considered innocent. And that's precisely why, when the president of Iraq was Jalal Talabani, the deceased former Kurdish leader, he refused. Yeah, he refused to sign the declaration of that would have allowed Saddam to be hung. So he didn't sign it. It had to be signed by one of his deputies. So that's the reality. I think people misunderstand Kurds. We have no interest in violence at that level. We don't necessarily even want a separate nation. I think what we want for the most part is to live in peace
That's right.
in the Middle East, and to not be manipulated by anyone else. We just
Guys,
want our language and our culture.
if I may interject, I know in Lebanon we have a lot of Kurds, and
Yeah.
one thing I loved about the Kurds, how even though they're separated in so many places, they would go and visit each other. Like I had a very close friend of mine that he was Kurdi, and he would drive from Beirut all the way to northern Syria to visit
Yes.
his family, and then he drives to Iraq to visit the rest of his family, and they would do the same thing. And
Yes.
I'll be honest with you, when the Kurdish community in Lebanon, although they're Lebanese citizens, in every conflict they stayed out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, basically, the biggest problem we've ever faced is Turkey. I think that's by far the biggest challenge because
The biggest part of Kurdistan is in Turkey.
the biggest part is in Kurdistan, the biggest number and the biggest part is in Turkey, but also Turkey is the most nationalistic and the most antagonistic and oppressive to Kurds. So actually, there's a lot of parallels between Israel and Turkey, which they hate. Whenever I talk about that, they hate that because they know it's true and they want to represent the complete opposite. Turkey wants to be seen as a supporter of Palestine, but in fact, what they do is exactly what Israel does, but they do it to Kurds. And that, I mean, for example, just as a final point, which many people don't know about, there is a place in the north of Syria called Afrin, Afrin, Afrin. Yes. This is so similar to Palestine, this area. There are olive trees, there are farmers, and so on. And it's a Kurdish area. The population was at least 90% Kurdish, but over the last few years, the Turkish army has forced them all out and replaced them and given their homes to Palestinian and Syrian refugees in Turkey that they no longer want there.
Oh,
Even
there's something I don't understand. What is Turkey's beef with the Kurds?
it's
Like
nobody
know,
nobody really knows.
I know,
Even they don't know.
Really, because I
Yeah.
know, like from what I know about the Kurds, they're a close community. They marry from each other. They live together. They're a strong community, and they don't never step on somebody. So like I've never seen Kurdish militia go in another village and try to conquer another piece of land.
No. And many Kurds in Turkey don't even want a separate country. They just want the very basics, which is to be able to use our language officially and in schools, to be able to give Kurdish names to our children, and to
It's
rename
an ethnicity problem. They have a problem with the ethnicity of the Kurds.
It's identity. So the only way in which Kurds have been described in Turkey is as mountain Turks. In other words, the Turkish identity is basically all you can get, and the language.
I think what irritates Turkey about the Kurds in Turkey is that there's a lot of Armenians and Greeks that are involved with past problems that are also they're trying to label as the Kurdish. They're trying to use the Kurdish cause as for their own agenda, and that's why.
And that's what's happened in Afrin, in that place. It's basically it's so bad the situation that even the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank has spoken out against it because they know that Turkey is using these Palestinian refugees and Syrians as basically to replace the population there, and they're even pulling out the olive trees. I've seen footage of truckloads of olive trees being pulled out and being replanted in Arabic areas. They're doing all of this against the wishes of the Arabs, against the wishes of the Syrians, the Palestinians. This has always been a problem. For
the Turks, they have some like influence of north of Lebanon, like in Tripoli and all of that. They have a huge influence, and I still don't understand what is their like. What do you have? What kind of interest?
The Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire mentality.
So that's what it is. They just want basically control.
And to be honest with you, our situation was much better in the Ottoman era. It's much worse now because essentially Turkey has trapped itself in a situation of being incredibly antagonistic towards Kurds. I mean, if you get into lives where Turks are talking to Kurds, even the way they speak to Kurds, it's basically what Israel does, essentially. They hate it when that's being pointed out. They really get angry, but they want Kurds to be seen as being on the wrong side. Many Kurds fall for that trap. They think that because Turkey says they support Palestine, that we should say we should support Israel. That's exactly what Turkey wants, which is a shame. And essentially, we are all trapped in the same difficult situation. So the Palestinians basically are in a situation where many people say they support them, many regimes and many nations, but a lot of these regimes are essentially dictatorships who are looking out for their own interest and who are using the plight of the Palestinians for some interest that they have. This is certainly true in Iran, definitely true in parts of the Middle East, and that's the tragedy of the Palestinian people and the Kurds. And I'll say one thing about Saddam. He was basically starving us and feeding the Palestinians. And again, this is a situation where a dictator is using the plight of a people and weaponizing it against their own and for their own interest. And this is why we need to rise above all of this, because you see, we should not rely on dictators and regimes to solve our problems, and we shouldn't need them, frankly. What we need really is the true representatives of those people. And Israel has this problem. You know, they say Egypt supports us or Jordan has peace with us and all of this. They don't really. It's not the people. It's the local dictators and the regimes that have that, treaty with them. And so it's not sustainable. I think what will happen, in my opinion, this is the last thing I'll say. I think what will happen is that there will be a worldwide revolution. A lot of people talk about a worldwide, World War III. I think instead of a world war, there will be a worldwide revolution, and we will all basically get our freedoms at the same time. In America, there will be better representation, and people will fight for that in parts of Europe and in the Middle East. I think that's what will happen, because I don't see how one revolution can happen independently of another in this day and age with all this technology that we have. So the truth is, we will all liberate ourselves together.
When we thank technology, right? The guy was cursing technology.
Yes.
That's what all of this that we're in right now is thanks to technology.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no way to avoid technology. Technology is incredibly helpful. People demonize it because they're afraid of it. The people who demonize it are the ones ruling over us. They're the ones trying to ban TikTok. They're the ones who don't want social media around. It's the same in places like Turkey, where they ban Facebook and so on. It's in parts of the Middle East and the Arabic countries where they ban, Snapchat or whatever, WhatsApp. They do that because they want to prevent people connecting and supporting each other. That's what it is, really. And
Thank you, John. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt. I just want to say I'm very, very glad and I'm very, very thankful and proud that somebody of my people, which is you, that has this beautiful vision of world peace and righteousness. I just want to say, man, I've been following you for a while, and I'm honored to speak with you, bro.
I appreciate that. I followed you now as well. I think it's sad that a lot of Kurds sadly do go against people like me, because they simply haven't been able to understand where I'm coming from, and they're still at the stage of trauma and suffering. So sometimes,
I suffered myself. I was born in Kurdistan. We were refugees in the Kurdish camp border in Slopia in 1991. We left, and I've been in Australia since. Thanks to God, and thanks to my parents. We've been through a lot, but what's right is right. We have no reason to stand with the oppressor when we've been oppressed.
Exactly. I appreciate that. I mean, the truth is that we have far much more in common than we like to believe. And I think there are some people in Israel too who understand that their country is definitely on the wrong path, definitely on the wrong side of history. It's definitely not sustainable. I don't think there's any way in which Israel can go back after this genocide to a world where it will be tolerated in the way that it has been in the past. I think we need to learn from a history. But the fact is, if we want something for ourselves, if we want freedom and liberty for our people, we should also want it for everyone else, because it's not just good for us, it's good for everyone. And I do think in the Middle East we need unity. I think we need to find ways to connect. I don't think there's a need to fear one another. Nationalism is really toxic. Cultural rights and human rights have nothing to do with nationalism. Before these nations existed, we understood, our ancestors understood that we had differences that should be respected. We had our own languages and cultures and histories and so on that should be appreciated.
Even enemies respected each other.
Of course. And I think we need to look at the end of the day, Arabic culture, Iranian culture, Persian culture, Kurdish culture, Turkish culture, we share a lot in common. We have a lot of history in common, so we share the same destiny. Our future is the same future. We are all going towards that future together. It's not independent, roads, and we're not all on a separate journey. We're going to head to the same place in the end. And that's the sooner we realize that, the more at peace we can be now. And sadly, Israel is a country that has forgotten that and now finds itself on a completely different path. But the world has moved on from that way of ruling over people, from that kind of politics and mentality, the mentality of apartheid and nationalism and racism and fascism and Zionism and all this disgusting stuff that has led to so many innocent people being unalived, including, babies and children whose only crime is to be born, on that land. That's all it is.
Okay, guys. God bless all of you. Thank you very much, Chip. I appreciate it. And Dr. Kaka,
Thank you, Zorspas. Thank you, guys. I'm going to head off as well now, I think.
Yeah, me
and
too,
I
guys.
appreciate your time, Chip. It's been good seeing you again.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you so
Thank
much.
you, guys.
I'm sure we'll talk again. I
Thank
hope
you.
it's
It's going to be
all.
recorded to YouTube and Rumble, so if you want to check it out, there's a link in my bio. Okay?
Thank you so much.
I'll see you
Appreciate it.
next time.
Thank you,
Thanks a
Chip.
lot,
Have a
everybody.
good night.